Welcome to Squawking Dead, everybody. We're going to shoot off the announcements really quickly right now because we want to get them out of the way so we can start talking about The Walking Dead. The reason why we're going to Walker Stalker Atlanta is all about interviewing Tom Payne, Jesus from The Walking Dead.
Insane.
We're going to be going live only on YouTube on Saturday night because we're going to go basically mobile ad hoc. It's going to be the most basic rig setup. Another thing that I want to get out of the way, and then we'll start talking about this, is we have our Walker Stalker McFarlane Toys Negan exclusive resin statue that's worth hundreds of dollars that we're giving away, and we'll be announcing the winner at noon Pacific time on Sunday. It was originally going to be like 3 a.m. Pacific to kind of give people time on the West Coast to finish up their entries before midnight. And possibly, obviously, we would probably announce the winners at the end of the interview, but, we made some, we tweaked the giveaway along the way, and we wanted to kind of give people a chance to kind of still enter, given the fact that some people had trouble with YouTube, the authorization policies were a little high. But we're so excited about this. We have a much bigger audience right now, and that's why my heart's beating in my chest.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on inside my body right now. Not to make it about me.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, so
I'm excited. I'm nervous excited.
Yeah, we're very nervous about interviewing Tom. It's
just a little.
The thing about it is that it's not something I'm not used to. Yeah, I know I've interviewed like bands before, famous people. Like I've met like Stone Temple Pilots. I've interviewed Sponge. During my college career.
And that never fazed you? Because you love Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh yeah, you know what it is? I met them when I was much older. I met them in my 30s. So it's kind of like you start realizing, they're aging. They're trying to rebuild their audience, and like me, I'm just meeting the people that I idolized as a teenager, and then realize, they're people just like us. They're flawed, especially Stone Temple Pilots. But all the love, but you got to be realistic. So
yeah. No, I could see that with a lot of the bands we grew up with. Sure. So why is this different from your perspective?
I think I don't know. It's a different arena for me. Obviously, dealing with music and musicians and stuff like that. That's one thing. But the other thing is it's caliber. Like I've met famous people before. And like we interviewed what's the blonde from Fargo guy? I can't remember his name. Peter Stormare. The guy in Fargo. He was in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
He does music also, and so we interviewed him about that. He's such a great guy. So there's that. But then I don't know. It's like I don't think I've ever really interviewed or spoken to anybody from television before.
Right.
So much. I mean, I have a little bit, but I mean, not to get this kind of interview, like exclusive one-on-one kind of long term. Yeah. Sort of. They have their attention on us. We have their attention on them, and. Right. A lot of pressure. I mean, and then there's the audience. Yeah.
No pressure.
So, yeah. Hey, what's up, Nashville Negan? I just shouted you out on 3streams.com. No.
There you go.
Yeah. So, if you missed it, we're going to be interviewing Tom Payne from The Walking Dead. Jesus.
Yep.
For those who just came on right now. And we're really excited about that. It was the whole reason why we're going to Walker Stalker. And we just got through talking about how nervous we are. And now the giveaway. The giveaway is kind of like not a last-minute thing. We've been talking about doing a giveaway for a long time. We wanted to... just so everybody knows, we've been doing this for a year. We covered all of Season 8. Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, obviously. I mean, you've seen that.
It's been a year. Wow.
Yeah. Our anniversary is, I think, officially October 11th.
Wow, that was crazy.
Yeah. And
it really has been a year.
Yeah, and we've been so busy, we really haven't had a chance to really announce it.
No, because we've just been kind of like go, go, go.
Yeah.
But I remember when we started that podcast, because I think that you didn't think I was serious about it at all.
Oh, yeah. It's in our About page on our Facebook. If you want to see the exact, not conversation, but like kind of the last few bits of it, it's actually really, really funny.
Really? I don't even remember exactly, but I just remember that I contacted you after like we spoke about it like a while ago, and I was like, hey, are you ready?
Yeah, you're ready to go? Yeah, all right.
You were like, oh, okay.
Oh, wait, what are we talking about? The Walking Dead thing.
Remember? You said you would do it?
Yeah, and by the way, you had that conversation with me like about, it was, it had to have been like, obviously last season, because it'd been at the...
Right.
No, When did you have that conversation with me?
It was definitely like at some point during that
Maybe
that
it was the first
interim
episode.
period. It was before the season had begun, because it was definitely during that interim. And then basically we talked about it and we were like, yeah, we're going to do it. And then like October came around and it's like, all right, are we ready to go?
Here we go. You doing this? And like, I just don't know what you're talking about.
I was like, no, we talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about this. Don't you remember? It's been on my mind the last few days. Oh, what? Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's like, remember we talked about this like 2 years ago.
But, you know, like in anybody's defense, like especially, you know, you have to think about it. It's kind of like when you have harebrained ideas, nobody thinks the other person's really serious.
Really listen. Yeah, exactly.
When you find out that they are, they're like, well, okay, yeah, let's do this.
This is like, exactly.
So it's been a year, people. Yeah, we've been doing this for a year. And that's the thing. And so the reason why we're doing the giveaway, the reason why we're doing all this is, look, it's been a year, and we've only really had more of an audience since we've been more involved with Twitter. Oh, sorry, with Instagram, and a little bit with Twitter.
Instagram has been huge, though.
Instagram, you guys on Instagram are incredible.
Yeah,
I have to say, like the TWD family community on Instagram, and Nashville Negan's liking the hell out of this thing because he's awesome, and that's the thing. That's the thing about this community. It's very warm, very welcoming, and that's the thing. It's nice to be involved. It's nice to be able to make comments and you know, have input and stuff like that. And and you've seen me. It's just I'm rocking and rolling on there. You know, it's to the point where I don't think you're even involved in it anymore. It's just kind of like I love you on Twitter, by the way. You're pretty great. When you have the time to do it, you're awesome.
I have my moments.
You're like me. Okay, so I'm the me on the show when we're podcasting, but you're the me on Twitter, by the way. Because you know me, I'm a little deep in.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
I'm like the Alex Jones of breaking down podcasts.
Yeah,
breaking down The Walking Dead.
Yeah, you go. I mean, yeah. I agree
and
with
the globalist, you know, the globalist saviors. You know,
you go into you get in pretty deep for sure.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad sometimes too, because you're like, come on, let's wrap this up.
No, because but the thing is that we approach it from two very different viewpoints, in the sense that sometimes, like, I think it's partially, honestly, your musical background leads you to kind of be so much more like, you know, you look at the artistic, deeper meaning in things, and I may look at it to an extent, but to another extent, I'm like, yeah, he wanted to kill him.
Yeah, I mean, what's the problem here?
That was, there we go. You know, there you have it, you know.
You guys kidding me? Hey, come on, let's move on. I got shit to do.
So we have different approaches, but that's what makes it great.
Yeah, and to be honest, most times we meet in the middle. It's like this concentric circle, you know. It's like you know, we're people at two opposite ends of the toilet bowl, swirling down the middle and finally getting flushed.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah,
that's like, great. That's really encouraging.
Another reason to keep me around is these stupid toilet bowl analogies. But yeah, and we somewhat, and most of the time we meet in the middle, especially when we're talking about The Walking Dead. Fear the Walking Dead, not so much.
Maybe not so much. I was going to say, Fear the Walking Dead, maybe not so much.
That's going to be like a running gag, by the way. Every now and again, we got to go, you remember Fear the Walking Dead? And she's like, I'd rather forget.
I'd rather not talk about that. It's like, let's focus on the task at hand. Just saying.
Yeah, the task at hand. That was over, Dave. Let's not bring up my traumas.
Let's not bring that up. Let's focus on what we've got going on right now.
I like to focus on the living. Anyway, so all right, so let's start this episode off, because I mean, the first thing I noticed is that slowly, the beginning of the show, Andrew Lincoln still kind of says, last time on The Walking Dead.
He's still narrating it.
But it's like waning now, right? It's waning a little.
I don't know if I noticed the waning, but I just definitely noticed, like, okay, this isn't a one-time thing. This is a consistent thing that they're doing on purpose. So it'll be interesting to see if this is just sort of like, okay, you know, this is him telling this story before he departs, however it is that he departs. I mean, I don't think that he's being killed off personally.
Yeah, we're on the same page on that. A lot of people that I've been talking to are on the same page of that. And even still, if it does end up being a death, I think we've had enough time to kind of process it. Mm-hmm. And now we're kind of more on the page of, okay, well, now that we've processed it, they still have to have a really clever, good show, right? So yeah. So that's really the thing. So, but the thing that I did notice is that I'm trying to break up the other chat windows. I feel like I'm like, it's like the Bloomberg screen, like you know those guys with the Bloomberg screens. It's like, all right, come on,
They've got multiple things going on.
Get over your midlife crisis. But that's basically my desktop right now. And speaking of, I have to remember to cut off the stream around the 50-minute mark, and on the Instagram, because I have to start that up again, and so that you guys can hang on, right? So, what were we talking about? Okay, no, the waning, right?
Yes.
So the
Rick's
whole
introduction, his narration.
Yeah, the whole waning thing is really based on the idea that, okay, Rick had that extended narrated introduction in the first episode. In the second episode, his meeting with Negan was kind of like a narration device. He was kind of like, he opened the show and he closed the show with us.
Yep.
Yep. And now it's just the last time on Walking Dead, which is, I love it, because not like I didn't like the announcer guy in the beginning of every episode. I was kind of like nonplussed, but it's kind of like he's handing it off, like he's handing off his baton in a way, and he's kind of still there with us kind of aspect. I kind of like that.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. I think it's different, and I kind of like it, and I get the vibe of what they're trying to do, so I think it's good. I think it works.
Yeah, I do too.
It's kind of all about, this is Rick's story.
Yeah.
So he's giving the background.
And I think he'll still do it. Now the question is whether he'll do it after episode 5, like 6. Like that'll be a little weird to be like, okay,
I know that
you can go home now.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know what they're going to do then. Right. So I don't know necessarily. Like, are you just going to go back to business as usual, like after episode 5, or what? Like what? I mean, I don't know. Like, will it serve its purposes at that point? Is he going to narrate his departure on the helicopter, like MASH or something? Yeah,
it's like a foregone conclusion right now.
I'm convinced he's going up in that helicopter.
Speaking of,
away,
I mean, like
MASH.
This episode,
also like MASH.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whole thing is like MASH.
Yeah. But yeah, we are starting to see signs of, because a lot of people have been talking about this, and the theories are really opening up from the based on this episode. Like the idea that, we can call her this again, that the idea that Jadis has swapped in people. People are thinking that that's going to be Rick.
Yeah, I mean, she did try before. When she captured Rick before, I mean, you just get the impression that is... I mean, she captured Rick, she's captured Negan, she's captured Gabriel. I mean, it all seems like she's, participating in this sort of barter exchange with, in my mind, I presume to be the government / Commonwealth that is around.
Yeah.
Well, in the comic book in Ohio, to be technical.
To be precise. Which kind of makes sense. Like, if they're saying it's a whole other place, like what Jadis is saying, it's a whole other place.
Right.
Obviously, several states, well, not several, but a couple.
Enough states over, yeah.
In a flyover. Yeah, so, and who's to say that these people aren't the Commonwealth? In fact, I think the symbol of the Commonwealth, I mean, you would correct me if I'm wrong, but that whole 3 circles interlocking, is that their symbol? I didn't see it in the key to the future, and then again, Georgie doesn't really say that she's of the Commonwealth either.
She doesn't say that she is. I think everyone just assumes that, and I assume that too, because I mean the Commonwealth is huge, so she's not like the sole leader. There's different hierarchies and individuals and things like that. So I believe that she. Yeah, like it's the government. So it's like I think she is from there, and I think that that whole community is basically going to be how they whisk away Maggie and Rick out of the show without necessarily closing the door on their stories completely.
Right.
I think that they'll approach it that way, and essentially you could have 2 stories going on concurrently in 2 different locations. You have Rick and Maggie over in the Commonwealth, which we're kind of left to, okay, they have gone to this community. We don't know what this community is about yet, but we will get to it eventually. And in the meantime, it allows them to kind of focus, or the writers to basically focus at the task at hand of like your remaining crew of people dealing with a whisper threat in Alexandria, that area specifically. So,
which is kind of weird if you think about it. Like, we were kind of like jaw dropped and all like that Carl was gone, and now that Rick is leaving, it's kind of like, well, just up is down, down is up. It's like. It's great, but I like it. I like that, and I feel like we made comments like this at the beginning of the beginning of our run. Is that like about Father Gabriel specifically? Like when we started to see how, like we started breaking down how Father Gabriel's like this disruption element, and that people didn't like him, but at the same time, I kind of was like, I kind of like him because you drop this guy in who's kind of like trying to be a part of this world now, and you get to be along the ride with him, and you get to see his growth, whereas other people are kind of used to it, and him trying to cop on and either be a part of the group or not of the other group. It's that idea of like he's like this just disruption, but now you have this element of like, okay, we thought we knew what was going to happen based on the comic, let's say, just for instance, like or in general, if you read like synopses of the comic, And then you start to realize that, like, okay, nothing seems right. Like, nothing, none of this, like, Rick gone, Carl gone, it just, what is going to happen now? Like, how do they deal with this? With so many top players gone, I mean, Maggie too. With Maggie gone too, like, how does this look? You know, how does this interaction going to be? And I like that. I don't know what's coming.
Yeah, I think it's intriguing to not know necessarily how it's going to happen. I don't know how I feel about, like, Rick and Maggie not being on the show, and if the remaining crew is enough to carry the show, because I just don't know too many situations that's happened successfully. But not to say that it can't happen. Right,
and I agree. Like, I'm definitely willing to give it a chance, because if they're willing, think about it. If they're willing to put themselves, so let me put it this way. One of the things that Star Trek did, and I think this was with. It was with Ron D. Moore at the helm. He introduced what everybody knows is kind of like one of the biggest threats that Star Trek: The Next Generation had, which was the Borg. Right now, he kind of set the precedent that, like, at the end of every season, the USS Enterprise would face like this almost unbeatable foe. So at the end of every season, they would be faced with, like, what seemingly is like the most impossible thing. And then when the season comes back, it's kind of like they find a way to resolve it. They put themselves in a writing hole, and they write themselves out of it, right? And they spend, like, all these months trying to write themselves out of it. And so it really kind of, to my knowledge, that's kind of like the first time I've seen anybody do that. And then I'm not saying it's par for the course, but the idea still kind of stands with this show, is that they're putting themselves in a position, and obviously they've had tons of time to get themselves out, because they can't. After losing so many people, they can't really not, right? But the idea that they would put themselves so far in a hole, I kind of want to see how they get themselves out, how they make it interesting. What do you do? Is it going to repeat season 8? Ooh, right? So it's kind of interesting when you think about it. It's like, okay, where's everybody? and then because obviously the writing at the top of the season was really, really good. It's so rich, even if it makes you unsettled and uneasy. It's just rich. It's rich with information.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, I think that there's a lot of potential here. The writing's been very solid. It's been very good. It's going to be, we just have to see what happens and how exactly they choose to write him out, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and not just him. I mean, I'm just meaning for, like, we're in it for the long haul. That's right. Just what's happening. At this point, you have to kind of think beyond Rick, right? Yeah. You just have to think about the rest of the show. Yeah. And now I'm wondering, like, which I don't know, in a way, is that kind of clever, right? Like, okay, having announced Rick's departure maybe prepares us for what's ahead. Like, okay, we can mourn his loss, but then it allows us to kind of focus on the rest of the show. Like, okay, now what do we do?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it might be something where when your lead is gone, you have to kind of focus at the story at hand, rather than just like, okay, what's going to happen with Rick? It's like, oh, there's more than just what's going to happen with Rick.
Yeah, it's what's going to happen with Maggie. What's going to happen with when the Whisperers come about. It's a lot to talk about.
It's a lot. There's a lot going on.
And we will.
And look, there's plenty of more rich storytelling to come. I mean, just based on the material alone that we know is coming. So there's still a lot to be said.
Yeah, it's not over yet.
No, even with Rick and Maggie leaving.
And then again, like, if with Rick leaving in episode 5, you just got 3 episodes left before the break. And
wow, that's crazy.
And that's like, I feel like that's almost like more than enough storytelling to keep you off balance, the whole thing, you know?
I know.
Like, it would be one thing if he left on episode 7, right? And then you have the one episode where you're kind of like, I need more, I need to know what's going on, I know what's gonna happen. But now it's like 5. Well, that's 3 full episodes of things that happen without him. And then obviously Maggie's leaving, I think 6 in episode 6.
I think it's 6. I think hers is 6, and Rick's 5. Rick is definitely 5.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 5 is his last episode.
So there you have it. Okay, so there's one thing that I want to talk about, and I know I'm kind of dominating the show, but it's just the thing I'm most passionate about for some reason. The one thing it's the one thing I've always wondered. Okay. You know, we've seen so many people getting taken down by walkers, right? But one of the things I wondered is, like, okay, at some point the people they're eating turn, right? What happens? How does that work? And so
remember, everybody's already infected.
No. But here's the thing: we open the show with Justin being eaten, right?
Right.
Savior Justin, and then we finally get this like scene, like we're kind of getting like a little reveal, like because we've never seen this before, where all of a sudden the walkers just stop eating, get up, and move on. I just thought that blew my mind, like.
Really?
Yeah, we've never seen that. Like,
well, probably not since like season 1, because Andrea's sister was attacked by walkers, and like they got her away.
But they put him down, right? So
they put her down when she started to turn.
Right. Well, they put her down when she started to turn. They put down the walkers that attacked her. The walkers. It doesn't matter. But the whole point is that, like, okay, you've never seen somebody just lying there with nobody around them, nobody to save them,
like reanimate after being dead.
Yeah, and then the walkers' behavior is my point. The walkers' behavior as they're eating, they just stop what they're doing and they get up and they move on. I thought that was cool. It's kind of like looking behind the curtain, you know, and finding the Wizard of Oz just a little bit, just get a little peek of the Wizard of Oz, right?
All right. I see what you're saying.
I don't know. Just for some reason, it's kind of like, okay, you know how everybody, like, in the beginning we're talking about the cure and Eugene with the cure, and it's like very interesting. It's not going to happen, but at the same time, it's kind of interesting that they're exploring this. And so you're getting kind of like okay, they're gonna push this thing, they're gonna push that thing, and then you find out, and obviously you find out, okay, this guy's full of shit. But it's the same kind of idea. It's like they're flirting, you know, and it's something that, I don't know, it's just something I always thought of, like, okay, at some point this person they're munching on, devouring, is going to turn, right? So how does that work? The walkers, they don't continue eating that person. So now we got a little bit of insight, and it kind of goes to what Gregory Nicotero was saying, was that he said that at the first Talking Dead, or it might have been the first Talking Dead, he said something about, like, you know, we're really featuring the walkers, at least in episode 1, but it's kind of interesting that they kind of focused a little bit more of the emphasis on the walkers themselves, because we kind of took them for granted. You know, you always got to see a cool walker in a cool situation, but there's a little bit more like of a feature to them, you know. There's instead of like that kind of horror element, it's like, okay, they're somewhat relevant, you know, and then you get this little insight, and it's kind of cool. Oh yeah, by the way, Rhodes 1378, yeah, like, they definitely don't like zombie flesh, but it's just interesting to see them just suddenly stop, you know, and like move on. It's like all of a sudden they woke up and they just moved on, because like, oh, this isn't appetizing anymore.
That's true.
I know I'm going on. It just blew my mind to kind of actually see that. We always assume that, you know what I mean? You never got to see it. That's the thing. But yeah, so what was going through your mind when you actually saw that? Because we saw it right from the beginning, that final warning on the wall. It hadn't occurred to me. Like, I'm like, oh, this means something. And then at the end of the episode, you kind of find out.
Right.
What were you thinking when you saw all the signs and all that stuff? Did you have any ideas just from the onset?
Well, I definitely kind of got the impression, like, okay, well, these saviors are being hunted.
Yeah.
So it's like somebody's hunting them and like killing them. Like, if it, you know, so I wasn't sure necessarily who. I mean, I was going through, like, I definitely didn't think it was Oceanside. That I did not. I will say that. Like, it did not dawn on me that it could be them. I thought, oh, maybe it's Dwight, maybe it's a Whisper, maybe
that's actually what I was thinking.
Daryl. Like, I was thinking like different options, but Oceanside was definitely not one of the options I thought about. And then I'm kind of glad that it was, because this was a really heavy episode. I mean, it was heavy.
Everything that was said.
Yeah, it was heavy.
Yeah, punch to the gut.
Yeah, it was definitely a punch to the gut. And then you have to kind of, you know, ask yourself, like, well, what would you have done? Would you have done what Maggie did? Or, you know, Maggie and Daryl, you know, would you have done, you know, what Cindy you've done? Like, would you have done differently? I mean, it's heavy. You know?
Yeah, there's definitely a world where you entertain both, and it's tough because you get both sides, and that's where they want you. That's what they like to have you. No, exactly. So I thought that they definitely were hunting saviors, but I was trying to figure out, like, who. I thought it was kind of interesting. It was a very, like, whodunit sort of thing. It's like from the get-go, it's like, okay, well, we know that this guy's dead, and we know that he was definitely killed by someone. Who is it? Yeah, and who doesn't like a whodunit, right?
Right, exactly. Or as Jerry said, the perp.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm glad I caught that in the second watch, by the way, because I didn't the first time around.
Oh, really? I love that when he was like, when we catch the perp.
Hey, guys.
Like, yep. It's like, are we going to do an Egan or are we going to do a Gregory? I'm like,
Yes. I didn't even catch that. I don't know why.
No, really?
The first time.
No, I did catch that because it's like that's what this is all about. Whose governing philosophy do you go with? You go with a benevolent, democratic stance of saying like, okay, well, we're going to trial this person and, you know, figure out what's the right punishment, or are you going to go full on authoritative and say, nope, punishment fits the crime, you know, put to death.
Yeah, authoritarian. And either side, by the way, is guilty of it because, okay, and just to say it out loud, so between the Jerrys and the Jesuses, they're basically us. They're basically saying the premises of this show out loud, by the way. So yeah, Jerry says, are we doing this guy? Are we doing a Gregory or are we doing a Negan? And then Jesus,
nobody can really answer.
Yeah, I don't think.
They did answer. They said that they will be reprimanded basically as needed, whatever that means.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Yeah.
As we find out, no.
Nope.
But like Jesus at the end of the episode, was it the end of the episode or was it the sneak peek? Because I think it was the AMC.com sneak peek, where
I think it was the sneak peek that you're about to say.
Yeah, so that must be right. Which is something that I'm going to ask Tom about, because the idea of Tom basically saying things out loud, like, you know, either way you slice it, be it Rick having decided on his own that he's going to keep Negan behind bars, or you trying to take out Negan, you know, who are you to kind of make that decision?
Right.
You know, without, you know, the decision is bigger than you. So I love that that like both Jerry and Jesus say that they kind of just spell it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of love that, because they're us. They're kind of just in the middle. Alden kind of in the middle.
Yeah. No, exactly.
You know. So and then the rest and everybody else is kind of clueless, or, you know, they're too wrapped up in the emotional aspect of it. You know, and Rick, you can see Rick struggle too.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Like every moment he reveals that too. Like every morning.
Yeah.
The devil comes marching in, that kind of thing. But yeah, so that's right. So Rick's hand. So the cool thing. So we do get to see Rick's morning routine.
It's a little montage.
Yeah. I kind of like that. You know, it was a little weird though. It's like the first thing he does is go downstairs to visit Carl's grave, blah blah blah. But I love that. You know, we'd seen the promos with Rick kind of touching the patio wood where Carl and Judith's handprints were. So we were prepared for it. But it was kind of nice to see it. There was a lot of cool things about this episode that kind of came about, like the little ports in the storm, right? So things like that, like him going to the tomato plant, right? You know, and then seeing the rock, you know, the formation of rocks, the sea representing Carl's burial spot. But these little things, these little ports in the storm that are outside the main high tension point, right? Which I feel like is kind of, I mean, between you and me, it's kind of like the lesson that they learned in like from dealing with season 7 and 8, and then also probably seeing some of the success in like introducing like either a little bit of non-seriousness or like kind of like caring and lovingness in Fear the Walking Dead, like that whole John, Dory, and June, and, you know, Laura, June, Naomi situation. Like to see kind of a sweetness amidst all this chaos, this emerging chaos. It's kind of a cool little device to get you to kind of feel something that other than pure abject misery and tension. Right. It's just kind of we don't get that. We don't often find that. You know, very little of it.
That is true. That is true. Good point.
Yeah. So, and we can, by the way, you can tear that a little bit apart, because like the tomato thing, by the way, if you remember like Carl's dream of the future.
Yeah, the tomato plants.
That's right. He was like showing Judith the tomato plants and stuff like that. Yeah, because we assumed it was strawberries, but it was really, you know, picking strawberries with Negan. It's like, no, as a matter of fact, it was tomatoes. And then, you know, carrying Judith around and stuff like that, you know, that whole thing. But yeah, the tomato itself, that was Negan's, you know, that he was growing tomatoes and stuff like that. And then he puts it on Carl's little resting spot, you know, like, and he must do that every morning to kind of psych himself up, because it's tough, man. Yeah. Every day. And it becomes symbolism, because at the end of this episode, you see the symbolism of that tomato being squashed under heel as the saviors walk off. You know? So it's like they leave these little things that we can see like a symbolism, like, okay, so much for your dream, buddy.
Yeah, let it go.
Yeah. Time to go. You know, or you know, is he gonna still keep, you know, hold on, right? You know, is he gonna try to keep holding on as things crumble around him, right? It's like one of the things I was worrying about with Rick too. When you think about it, like, okay, it's the one thing that kind of gets you thinking, okay, maybe they will get rid of him. Like maybe he'll keep trying to hold on, and then, you know, it's just like that kind of like Ahab mentality. Like I gotta get the whale at all costs, even though I'm not able to save reality.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that gets me worried, that maybe it is a death. you know, and not one of these helicopter situations. Otherwise, it's a helicopter situation.
A helicopter situation.
Yeah, so what do you got for me?
What do I've got? I kind of like the fact that Rick put his detective hat on, like his former sheriff days.
Again, in this episode.
Yeah, basically I mean, we'll get to it, but before all of that, I mean, you can tell that definitely, I don't know, it definitely gave me like a Law and Order vibe. I don't know why. It was just like the ruckus. Yeah, just kind of like the ruckus around this like dead body and like sort of like, well, who did it? Well, they, you know, he had a reason and this one had a reason and all of that. I mean, it was very, I don't know, I liked that. I liked that whole sort of thing. Like, I mean, you already know that this
the grid, right?
What?
The grid that they have to kind of just take search for evidence, you know? Everybody was like walking in a grid and they were checking in. Quadrant D1, you know?
Yeah. No,
that's all that's about, you know?
It's all very Law and Order. The whole thing was very Law and Order to me, which I really loved because, well, I love Law and Order. So, like, I love Law and Order, the original. But
right. Not that shit.
Not that other, like, CSI and SVU and all. I mean, if, you know, fine and good if you like that too, but it's like, to me, the original Law and Order. That's it, plain and simple. I've seen like every episode.
Yeah, because it's quintessential New York, right? Kind of.
It is. And listen, you can jump in at any time. Every episode is its own unique case. So
you cannot do that on The Walking Dead.
No, you can't do that on The Walking Dead. Don't try to jump in at season 9.
Or let's increase those ratings.
No, you can, but I mean, like, it might be maybe season 9 is a good one because it is a new beginning. So it's probably a better place to jump in rather than, I don't know, season 7. Maybe not season 7.
Yeah, you could probably read synopses in season 7 and 8 and then just skip to 9 because 9 is just way more rich. Everybody's kind of together and it's just consistent. And even when people are like in this episode are searching through the grid, you know, searching for everybody, I think everybody abandoned us on Instagram, by the way. Was it something I said?
I don't know.
No, but so even when people are searching the grid for evidence and stuff like that and Arat, basically, you still get the sense that everybody's kind of together. You know, they're communicating via walkie. They're not giving you a moment where you think, like, there are small moments of privacy, obviously, but like, you don't really get the sense that they're far away, but they are far away. You know what I mean? Like, they're always within reach in a weird way, so that kind of keeps them together.
Yeah, they're still connected by one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they're not like on an island, basically, like in season 8, you know? Right.
But this thing just kind of blows up, you know? It's just, you have this group, and everybody starts accusing each other. Oh, it's this one. It's Jadis. No, you know, it's the garbage lady. You know, she probably did something. Or it's like, no, it was Daryl. He probably finished what he started or whatever. Which Daryl doesn't even try. He doesn't even try to kind of discourage it. He's like, oh, you want to come for me? It's like, go right ahead. It's like, well, let's do this right now, you know?
Yeah. It's like, so, no, it won't. We got this.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry
what it exactly says too, because it was perfect. It was like, was this like, oh, this will go too far. It's like, no, it won't.
No, it won't.
Crossbow.
It's like, nope. We're gonna take care of this right now.
Yeah.
And then of course Rick shows up on a horse.
On his horse.
And to break things up.
Which, by the way, so like that whole scene, by the way, is I love that little element that it's kind of like a Twilight Zone element. Do you remember like the monsters on Maple Street? Have you ever seen that episode?
I don't think I saw that one.
Where the monsters are out.
I've seen periodic episodes of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, you'll definitely like recognize the premise, which is it's basically electricity in a town goes out all across this little tiny suburban neighborhood area, and people kind of slowly start to unravel. They start suspecting people of being an alien because it had been reported that they saw a flying saucer and blah blah blah. And you know, so now everybody's kind of pointing the finger. Who's the alien? Who's the alien? You know, like, and then the lights start flickering on everybody's property and like starts randomly turning on here and there. It's like, oh, he's the alien because he has electricity, and it ends up being like this experiment. Basically, the aliens are basically saying, you know, this is what happens to a city block. You know, as you know, as the humans start to descend, as they start accusing each other. Yes, if we keep doing this block by block, you know, we'll be able to take over the world. But the point being is that I love elements like that, oh, who did it? You know, and then people start accusing each other randomly because everybody essentially they're scared and they're angry too because of all this back drama too. So there's an added element of like, it's not just a finger pointing thing. There's actual history here that cannot be glossed over. So it's just so like, it's fascinating. It's like how they constructed this, you know, and it literally being 2 rows of people, like the amalgam of the Hilltop, Oceanside, Alexandrians, and then the Saviors, which, by the way, seem to be huge in number. You know, like the Saviors kind of dominate all the residents distance of all three other communities.
Except that they've been stripped of their weapons.
Yes. They
Well,
have
guns.
They have the numbers, but they don't have the firearms, basically.
Right.
So it's just kind of good to drop a pin in that, because you realize when they walk off, it's like, who's left? Who can do this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who can build that bridge? Who can, you know? And as you start seeing the next episode, you know, with the Saviors having walked off and the levee's broken, all the water starts rushing in, and you're kind of like thinking to yourself, I mean, if this project isn't already done, trying to do this thing with the Saviors, you know, trying to keep all the communities together, if this bridge goes out, there's just no hope. First of all, they'll be on their own.
Right.
And, you know, second of all, it's just kind of like, you know, it's out of your hands at that point. Like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, sigh. Tension. It's tense.
Yeah, no, it's tense. But that's what I mean when Rick puts on his detective hat and basically has a talk with Daryl to kind of see, like, and explore, like, if it really could potentially be him, because he tells them that he, you know, knows that, like, his wound was like a puncture wound from like an arrow or some sort of, like, you know, harpoon, or, you know, I say
we don't know that yet.
We don't know that yet, but basically spear, something, you know, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he questions Daryl if, like, you know, which Daryl's like, oh, you think I didn't? He's like, well, no, but a lot of people here do, so I have to explore that, which is legit. That's absolutely legit. You got to, like, basically eliminate any possibility.
And by the way, this is where I went bananas with you on Instagram Messenger, or no, I'm sorry, on Instagram Messenger, Facebook Messenger. I started blowing up because I kind of knew you weren't watching, because if you were, you'd probably react with me.
Yeah.
But I just was like, oh my God, I know who it is. And like, I was so sure of myself. I was literally about to put like an Instagram story about it.
Because you thought it was Dwight, right?
I thought it was Dwight 100%. Because I was just like, you know, who would be the person we least suspect at this moment? You know,
and a lot of people there were a lot of rumblings about Dwight. And I thought to myself, like, before the episode, I thought to myself, well, maybe it legitimately is Dwight. And then it was like, you know, obviously it wasn't. But that would have been valid.
But by the way, I carried that suspicion, like, practically to the end, because when I heard women talking, or a woman talking, I was like, oh my God, Sherry? So I started flipping out. I started, like, doing backflips in my seat and stuff. Like, wow, this is so soon. Damn, we're going to see Austin Emilio. Awesome. Sherry, awesome. I hope it's the same actress. Like, literally, all this is going on in my head. And then all of a sudden I see Oceanside. So that's also interesting. But I was like, oh, I am so totally wrong.
Right. No, exactly. I was like, oh, okay.
And to think, I was like literally in the middle of an Instagram story saying, I know who it is.
It was like, no.
And then I decided not to do it. And I'm so happy that I did.
I know. That's the thing.
I have to delete it.
You can't, man. It's like, you just don't know what they show. So you can't necessarily, like, you know, go out on a limb here.
But again, how awesome is that? How awesome is that to be wrong?
Yeah, no,
and
exactly.
Still be surprised, you know?
Right, to still be surprised. Exactly. That's good writing.
Oh man, so happy.
Yeah, no, it is. I was very pleased with that. But I like the fact that we had some touches with the past again, where Rick is, you know, kind of like, because, you know, Daryl makes it very clear, like, look, these people are scum. Who cares? You know, whatever.
Yes.
And
they're not ready to forget.
Right. And Rick is kind of like, hey, listen, you know, you gave a chance to somebody who, like, left your brother to die.
Yeah.
Which is true. You know,
that was a good burn. Okay. Not a burn, but obviously it's kind of like, think about that for a second, you know?
Yeah.
Let that process. And then I remember that scene where Daryl caved and said, you know, okay. Like, he was just very frustrated with Rick.
Yeah, he was very frustrated.
You know, he wanted to beat the hell out of him.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely season 1.
But more so, after watching it the second time, I'm like noticing, like, Daryl... Here's the thing, and it's really upsetting. It, like, simultaneously it makes me feel two things about Daryl. One is that obviously he's not being listened to, and he's reacting to everything around him as if, you know, I've been telling you all this time, and now what's the point? I'm just gonna ride this out because I can, and I'm capable. You know, when shit goes down, I'm gonna be able to take care of myself. You know, so that I don't care.
Right.
You know, I'll protect what's mine. I'll protect everybody else. You know, but you know, like, this is going to happen. But on the other hand, there's, like, this incredible, like, righteousness about him. Like, it's one thing to be, like, righteous, but when you see the writing on the wall and you don't do anything about it, that made me kind of mad. It's kind of like, on the one hand, you're like, okay, I'm with you, Rick. You know, I want to give this thing, I'll give this thing a try. But then, like, when it comes down to it and you see the problems and you see the fissures, and I know he's been trying to tell Rick this whole time, but at the same time, when he's not listening, don't you think at some point you have to kind of step up and do something about it? And I'm not saying go the other way. Than Rick, but I'm just saying, like, do something.
Right.
You know, like, there is an element of that goes. He's not the only one that's kind of being righteous, and we'll get to that because I kind of made a note of it. It's like these people know what's going on, they see the writing on the wall, but they're hanging back and kind of just letting it all happen. And maybe it's because they trust Rick. And I get that, you know, pinning your hopes on Rick. I get it. I would too, probably. Rick is he's pretty right a lot of the time, so, or has been right a lot of the time.
True, very true.
Right, and that's the thing. The show kind of has a way of bringing that up, like, you know, between that scene with Aaron, that kind of swings you back towards the Rick camp, like, a little bit, because, like, oh, yeah, Aaron's right, yeah. When they were part of Alexandria, right from the initial, like, they woke up the Alexandrians and told them, look, you can feel safe for only so long, but without being familiar with this world, you're done. And he saw how he built up the Alexandrias that were left over. You know, Deanna's son, I forget what his name was, Austin Nichols, but I forget his name in the show. But like he stepped up. He was like an alcoholic, and he just stepped up for the community, and seeing everybody learn to fight and everything like that. It's just he got to witness that transformation. He was right the entire time. Like, even though he was wrong, he was right, Morgan. But yeah, so I don't know. It's things like the show's like a pendulum. It kind of gets you to see this one side, and then all of a sudden violently swings you to the other side, and it makes you see like Rick's angle, and okay, maybe he is kind of right, and then all of a sudden brings you back the other way, but not in a violent way. It just kind of like this. It's a big swing, but it kind of eases you into the other point of view. You know?
Yeah, I hear you.
So yeah. And why do they get this future? And why do the Saviors get this future? That was harsh, man. Like Len, Abraham, Sasha, the Kingdom Knights, Hilltop, Oceanside. He mentions all of them.
Yeah, because they're all casualties that they're not going to get a chance to reap the benefits of this new world, but the Saviors but again,
why do they magically get it?
But why do Rick and his team get it either, considering that they killed a bunch of Saviors in their sleep?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, this is kind of the outcome or the what happens in war in general. Like, you know, there's going to be casualties on both sides, and there's going to be blood on the hands of both sides. Like Rick which is why I've been the biggest, and you know this, I am the biggest Negan cheerleader on the face of the earth. I'm like, woohoo. Because like at the end of the day, it's like, fine, you know, he's extreme in some ways. I get it. But
you think? No?
I get it, you know.
Como se dice, tyrant?
Little bit, you know, but...
Yeah, a lot of it, but yeah. But I see what you mean. No, but so what's your point in that respect? Like, why Team Negan in that respect?
Because of the fact that this whole thing started with Rick listening to Gregory talk about somebody who was bullying them with no basis on anything. Even if Gregory had all the reason in the world, there was no evidence of anything. Just Gregory spouting off saying this. That's enough for you guys all to go to this satellite station and kill like 50 Saviors in their sleep, which Glenn did not agree with.
But by the way,
very clear.
This is pre like Gregory even knowing, because Jesus didn't know where the Saviors lived.
I don't know Jesus didn't know, but Gregory,
but he was their scout, though. That's the thing. Their spy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but still, though, like Rick had no reason to do what he did. Like, if you wanted to say, exactly. Like, you know, like, okay, well, we have to be, you know, we don't have to kill. We have whatever. It was a lot of Saviors, like a whole building full of Saviors that were killed in their sleep without any provocation whatsoever. I mean, that is intense, and that changed everything. And Glenn himself in that episode was horrified by the behavior that they exhibited. You remember Heath and Glenn were both kind of like incredibly traumatized, very shook, very traumatized by that, because that was never their way.
Yeah, I think there's that scene with Maggie too, like where he kind of just broke down. He's like, I can't believe I did that.
Right, exactly, because that is incredibly against everything that they stood for. You know, just because, okay, we're going to make a deal with this guy who's telling us these people are bullying them, and then instead of like, you know, these guys extorting food from them, then, you know, we can extort food from them. That was basically it.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
or like make a deal, I guess, right?
Well, essentially, barter. I mean, like, not even barter. I mean, for what? Protection? The same thing the Saviors were offering?
Oh man, you're right.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And that's why I'm just sort of like, look.
Well, there was kind of a difference, like small nuances where it's kind of like, you're not obligated. You know, like, if you don't want to give it to us, we'll walk away.
Hey, listen.
It's like, you have to give it to us, and we're going to. It's like a racket.
Well,
you know?
Negan would argue that you don't have to do anything.
Right.
You know,
we'll just kill one of you, and you'll still do it.
Well,
But I get your point. I understand.
Like, I mean,
you're right.
Like basically my thing is that I feel like there was, even though yes, it was a madness, there was a method to Negan's madness. And I mean, I think that I almost respect Negan a little bit more because he just kind of like, I think because of the ends, right? Well, and also
they don't
I
justify
feel like
the means, but they keep people safe. I guess less deaths because this thing was all about not
protection.
Yes,
like it's just
like every life counts. Though, remember, people are a resource.
He always felt people were a resource, so he wasn't trying to kill people all willy nilly. Like basically, like we never had a situation where Negan was ordering just a group of people just massively killed. That was Simon. What happened at Oceanside is very clear that was Simon.
Right.
You know, and that was something that was clear last season and was clear again this season. That was all
even
Simon.
More so, yeah.
Even more so. But that was not any order that Negan ever made. Like he never made the order to say you're going to go to like Oceanside and kill all the men and all the boys over like 9 or whatever.
Which, by the way, Sydney Park makes a distinct mention on Talking Dead about that. She says basically Cindy knows that it was Simon. Like she doesn't like Negan at all, but she knows that Simon was the guy. He's the one who orchestrated that. She knew that Negan would not have wanted to do that at the end of the day, and that Simon was the one to take out.
Right.
So, which I thought was kind of interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's like I can't necessarily get on the bandwagon with saying like, oh well, you know, these saviors. I guess, I don't know. I mean, I just have a hard time with like the whole, you know, well, Rick's way and whatever. I'm like, I mean, look, each person has a method to their madness. Rick has his own reasoning and his method to his madness, just like Negan had a reasoning for his madness, you know? I mean, I can say like, look, Rick murdered all these people in their sleep. You know, somebody else could say, well, Negan, you know, goes into places and, you know, kills one person to make an example and, you know, takes people's wives as their concubines or whatever, and that's not cool.
Yeah, it's like tomato, potato, Republican, Democrat.
I get it. I get it. You know?
They're all trying to do the same good thing, but basically different approaches. Yeah.
But they're all doing it with an intention of like getting something out of it.
Exactly.
They both wanted something out of Hilltop.
Assuming best intentions in this crazy ass world, what you can't do.
No, they didn't.
That's crazy.
Rick and his group didn't have best intentions. They just basically wanted like the food and goods that Hilltop had just as much as the Saviors wanted it.
Right.
Same thing.
In practice, I mean, I guess what you're saying is because when you flesh out Rick's idea of what they were going to try to do is like, you know, we're going to start a community. Oh, you're a part of it. Mm-hmm. Oh, Jesus said the world was about to get a whole lot bigger. Oh, yeah, so we're going to do that. We'll do that. Thanks, Jesus. Mm-hmm. Great idea. So,
are we blaming Jesus now?
Yes, we are. Which again, and by the way, the introduction of Jesus also too, the idea of him is this kind of like also agent of chaos, kind of like coming in the kind of funny too, you know, when we first meet him too. The show needed that, and the show needed to keep doing things like that too, and so to kind of see things like that pop up every now and again, like light moments for an extended period of time, obviously with that whole fun day with Judith and stuff like that, so they can go to the doctor. It just right. I mean, what did I think
about the montage? The Rick
Michonne not to violently flip towards that, but like, oh, what?
Me.
You're like, meh.
It was all right.
You're like, what is this?
But I wasn't like. Here's the thing. I know people who are huge like Michonne and Rick fans. Like in terms of as a couple, they're like, oh, Michonne, oh my God, Michonne, whatever. Like I'm not like.
We're learning something now, by the way.
What?
Because we never talked about this. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm fairly indifferent when it comes to these relationships on the show.
Oh, in general. Okay.
Yeah, in general. Like, I'm just sort of like, okay, fine. But, like, you know, that's about it. Like, I'm not sort of like... I know people like gush hardcore and they're like, oh my God, those scenes with Rick and Michonne, they're so incredible. They're so like, and that's fine, you know, but like for me, it's just not, it's sort of like, okay, sure. Even my husband, like even Eddie, he asked me, oh, what did you think about Rick wanting to repopulate the world and like have babies and whatever? And I'm like, not going to happen, but okay.
yeah. We'll see about that.
Exactly.
He's repopulating his Michonne's vagina. But anyway.
It's like, no, we'll see about that. It's all done. You got one more episode, dude. So
right. Dead air. Nobody likes dead air.
What do you do with dead air? Like elevator music.
Oh, Lordy Lord.
what was it, Muzak? Is that what they called it back in the day?
Yeah. I wonder if they still do call it Muzak.
Well, now they just play different stuff in the elevators now. Random things. It's very random.
Well, now they have those stupid monitors in the elevators.
Oh, yeah, with the news and whatever.
And the weather, because everybody loves the weather. Like, why talk to anybody anymore?
By the way, what's the weather going to be in Atlanta?
I just checked. The weather is kind of weird. Like,
well, it is an
weird.
interesting climate. It's an interesting climate, Georgia. You know what I mean? Because it's not like, I mean, it's not hot Atlanta right now. Like, during some points it is, but I don't think it is right now. I think it's actually kind of brisk, I heard.
Well, it's like 56, 59 degrees in the rain.
That's awesome.
But then, like, Sunday's going to be like 70.
As a high?
Yeah, I guess. With the sun.
Okay.
So it's just weird. It just like swings like that.
Yeah, that's okay though. I look forward to it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the event. I mean, we're going to be indoors the whole day.
I know, but it doesn't matter. It's just like some fresh air, like invigorating.
Oh, do you not get enough fresh air in your hood?
In Miami, Florida? South Florida?
Yeah.
Not as much. Not as much fresh air.
In South Florida, we get cigarette smoke. And so you live like in kind of, you don't live near Miami, right?
I live near Miami.
Oh, you do?
No,
okay.
I live in South Florida. I live like 30 minutes outside of Miami.
Oh, okay. Okay. So kind of like a Miami suburb?
Exactly.
Okay, I guess.
Suburb Miami, but it's South Florida, so it's all the same climate.
Yeah. Okay, I get you. So yeah, so Hershel. It's basically you view them as kind of like almost like between the idea that there's an apocalypse. Okay, hello.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's like, look, it's totally fine, but I guess it's interesting to me because I know some people like love the Hershel relationship hard. You know, they write fan fiction about it. Oh. They like, yeah, there are people who are like in it really hardcore, and I'm like, I care about the helicopter. It's like, I'm sort of like, yeah, that's all fine and good, but I trade in that scene for 10 seconds more conversation with the person on the other end of the line with Jadis. I want to know about that helicopter.
Yeah. And
if you can combine zombie horror apocalyptic show with government conspiracy, I'm 150% in.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
But yeah, you get the impression that like a lot of people are living through these relationships. I think that's what it comes down to with you. It's like, I'm not interested in
really?
that. Like, don't you think like a little bit there's like with all the, like, the Daryl kind of love and which I'm not begrudging anybody, by the way.
I don't think the Daryl love is, I think that's just like people who just kind of have the hots for him, basically. Like, I think that's the Daryl kind of love thing. But I don't think that's the thing with the Rick and Michonne thing. I think that they're just, I don't know, like I've listened to other podcasts, you know, especially ones that are like more, let's say, female driven or whatever. Yeah. And they're just so enamored with the relationship.
You mean enamored?
Yeah, like just I'm sorry, what did I say? It's been a long week.
Enamored, which is more French, by the way, so kudos to you.
I know, but I know nothing of French, so I can't even claim that. And I have no French whatsoever.
It's okay, I'll fake it.
It's just been a long week.
For both of us. I mean, wow.
I've been in conferences like Tuesday, Wednesday, and today. So Monday was really the only day that I wasn't in some sort of conference. And yesterday, side note, well, Tuesday, I was out all day, like from 8 a.m. I know everything with me is a side note on the show.
No, but you say it is like the best.
Because you know a story's coming when I say side note.
No, you do this thing like, and side note, and then you keep going. I just love that little part. Don't stop. It's great.
I know.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Okay. All right. That's great. So I was in all-day meetings like on Tuesday from 8 a.m. for breakfast, then meetings, then lunch, then more meetings, then after work, you know, dinner, whatever, cocktails, fine. That evening ended at like between 9:30. So it's like 12 hours, you know, straight. Then the next day, now I told you I live like outside of Miami. I live like half an hour outside of Miami. However, Miami traffic is a bitch. And so basically I needed to be I've said far worse than that on this show. But
yep.
The next day, you're like, yeah. The next day, I had to be back at, well, not the office, but at another location for an offsite meeting. And it was for a breakfast at 7:45. So I was like, so in my mind, I'm doing the math. I'm like, okay, I need to be there by 7:45. However, there is always a ton of traffic. So I should give myself enough time. So I left at like 6 a.m. in the morning. And I ended up taking a taxi because I was like, I don't want to drive because it's a very heavily congested area. And I knew that there was going to be more of the meetings and the after work drinks or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a taxi or whatever. And I mean, it was like in the taxi and I'm like on my way to this breakfast and it's still pitch black outside. I was like, this is just insane. This is crazy.
It's like unnatural. Like, how do people live like this?
Yeah. But for a while I did it in New York, like where it's like I would wake up like in the winter months, basically, because remember I lived like I had a 2-hour commute each way.
Oh, that's right. You lived outside you still
outside
live
of
in
the
New York,
city,
right?
I was still in New York, but I was living like suburbs of New York,
right?
And so it was like a door to door. It was about 2 hours if you timed it.
Oh,
and
man.
So during the winter months, it's like I'd leave by like 7. So I mean, it's still kind of dark, when it's winter, and then by the time I get home, if I leave work at 5, it would be like 7 o'clock at night, which again, it's dark during winter time.
Yeah.
And so I would feel like I'd leave work in the dark, come home in the dark. It was just darkness all around.
Yeah, I hate that like little Stockholm syndrome you get when like 6 o'clock rolls around and you're kind of like, well, not, yeah, it's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome because you're kind of like, well, it's dark outside, so I guess it's time to leave. But then you see that it's 6 o'clock and you're like, I've easily stayed until 8 o'clock when it's light outside. So why does there not being light make a difference? Like, do we live in olden times where we have to light candles and stuff? Do we live in the Walking Dead universe where it's kind of like, okay, darkness is around. You got to lock that shit down. You got to take care of your own.
Yeah.
But that like a holdover from olden times, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird how our brain kind of still kind of, I don't know, maybe it's like what is it called, genetic memory or something of how humans naturally react to darkness. Like there's a reason why we're afraid of the dark.
It's it's all part of like the whole kind of earth and the rhythms and kind of like your body. I mean, listen, there's a reason why certain places have like higher rates of depression and what have you. Like it's all related to light and darkness and weather. True. It has its effects.
Yeah,
it really
seasonal
does.
affective disorder and all that stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, what's crazy about here is that it's always sunny in Philadelphia. Well, it's always sunny in Miami, so it's always perpetually sunny. So sometimes I feel bad because here I am like this person who loves this horror apocalyptic show in a place where everybody has a sunny disposition because it is a sunny environment.
Yeah, which is kind of like why I like I'm not dwelling on Fear the Walking Dead, but like that's what I found really interesting about LA falling apart in the beginning of Fear the Walking Dead, because same thing. How do they deal with it, right? How do they deal with that sunny disposition and then it's LA, so it's like Armageddon. You know what I mean? It's like already Armageddon, somebody just had to light a match.
Yeah.
It's like a powder keg. So how do they handle it? And you see it. It's a tremendous shit show.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, you basically see LA burning in the distance as they drive away, that sort of thing. So it's I mean, oof.
Just up in flames.
So basically that's going to be kind of like Miami. And you're going to be watching it from where you are. 30 minutes away, hopefully.
On a boat.
The Abigail.
There you go.
It's like, what would you call your boat? A lot better name than the Abigail.
No, I never even thought about that. Although I was on a boat on my vacation.
Oh, last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Last week.
Yeah.
God, feels like an age ago. Like,
I know.
This week is like a time travel for me. It's like, oh, have we traveled like 3 weeks in the future? Because like that's what it feels like. I was
because
like
so
nervous for the show.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Because so much has been like in the pipeline and it's been going that it feels like it's been a while. And meanwhile, that's why it's so exhausting, because it really hasn't been that long. So all this development has been in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, revamping the site just took the RS out of
me.
I
can only imagine.
Oh my God. Yeah, but I got it. Imagine. Oh, I got it. Did I get it?
Kudos to you. I mean, but it's a lot. It's been a lot going on.
I like, and here I'm still thinking about it. Like I'm thinking, what else can I do with it? And there are things.
There are always things.
I kind of want to spell out the icons on the right to kind of like say what they are. Like even though they'll be like attached to the little bubbles, little circles on the website, which by the way, squawkingdead.com.
Well, what's funny, as in terms of like a test person, Eddie was trying to figure out where like to listen to it, and I told him, you can go on the website. But for whatever reason on his screen, he didn't see the icons on the side, and then I went on and I showed it to him, and he's like, for whatever reason on my screen, I wasn't able to see those like icons on the side.
Yeah,
so
that's what happens. What kind of phone does he have? We're like sidetracking.
No, I don't think. No, I think he was
going down this hole.
I know, we're down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. On his computer, you're saying?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens. Oh, Internet Explorer is just, I have to, yeah. Internet Explorer is like the bane of my existence right now. Like all the other browsers are copying on, but Internet Explorer, I mean, I've made do, but and actually, if Dahe's still on, she'll be interested in that. Dahe, check out squawkingdead.com. I know you like web design, so it was a lot of hard work. So
I can imagine.
Okay, so we've gone down this rabbit hole enough.
Yes. So yeah, so basically the whole Rick and Michonne montage, yeah, that's fine and good, but that's why I kind of jumped to like, okay, somebody runs over to Rick, tells him what's going on. Well, to Michonne, actually. Michonne tells Rick what happened. They found Justin, he's dead. And that's what kind of brought us to the scene with the ruckus, because then Rick interrupts it all. And
which, by the way, was nice to see Kenrick Green too, the actor, Sonequa Martin Green's husband.
Yeah, it's always so funny. Like, there's always somebody on the show that I kind of like all of a sudden pops up, and I'm like, "You're still alive?
Exactly.
Good for you."
That's exactly what I'm saying. Exactly what I'm saying.
I was like, "Good for you. You're still alive. Awesome."
Yeah. I mean, by the way, and even like, I was really impressed, both last week and this week mostly, obviously, with the way they started highlighting each of the Oceanside people, like, calling them by name. Oh, and do you remember that shot last week with Brianna Venskes, who plays Beatrice from Oceanside?
Yes.
That shot that she got, it's like...
now you kind of figure out the significance, too. Like, the fact, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, now it all kind of comes together.
Yeah, when you see that shot and you realize, oh, okay, she has a harpoon. Okay, noted.
It's like, oh, yeah.
Well, they made a note of it, too. It's like, a harpoon. So topical. So like, accessory for an action figure. Sure, why not?
But we didn't put it together at the time.
No, not at all. We just thought it was awesome. That shot was awesome. It featured her. And they kind of do that this week, too. They kind of make them important,
Yeah.
So I was very impressed. Very impressed.
Yeah, no, I was very impressed. But the way you were talking about before, they basically, kind of decide that, they meet, I want to say in the MASH tent again, all as a group about, kind of like splitting up and the quadrants and, pairing up and whatever to try and see if they could find this person. I mean, that's when, Jerry brings up, the perp and like how they're going to approach it or whatever.
Well, we didn't even get to the part where Rock went missing, though, did we? Or I don't remember. It
doesn't happen quite yet because
we see her Rock with the rest of that little tiny group of saviors in the beginning looking for Justin.
Yes, actually, yes. Before they find Justin, that's a very good point. That basically,
this is why I'm here. I just get the train back on the track.
Because you know what, it is very interesting. Like, you have this kind of like ideological Rick world, because he was like, you see his beginning montage and happy times, good Rick, his little routine and whatever. That's all fine and good. But then you got Maggie, poor Maggie. Maggie's on the freaking wagon,
biting her
tongue, delivering food to these assholes, even though she doesn't want to.
Thank you, Cal. Which, by the way, again, love how Cal is still here.
You know what he's called on the internet? Buff Glenn.
By the way, I hate that. I totally hate that.
Horrible. Isn't that terrible?
It's really minimizing him as a character too, because
it is minimizing him because he has a very like distinct personality. Like, he's had some funny one-liners on this show.
Yeah, I didn't want to use the R card, but like I was just disappointed. He's funny. I mean, maybe you could say, okay, he's funny like Glenn was when we first met him.
No.
Blah, blah,
no,
blah.
it's not the same though. It's not the same.
It's different. Yeah, it's more like a kind of like straight man kind of comedy. Do you remember him and the guy that plays Peter Z? Oh, sorry, the actor Peter Z. He and him were on the top of the Hilltop Gates. And
one of them was like, dude, like with it was something with Gregory or something.
Cal literally says, "You ate my sorghum pancakes," and Gregory goes, "I did not eat your," and I literally said this like this on the episode, "I did not eat your pancakes."
He's had some funny one-liners, and he's a little badass. He's a little badassy, in a way that Glenn was not. Not that Glenn was weak or anything like that. No one's saying that, but he has his own distinct personality.
Yeah, I mean, and as Glenn experienced more things and etc., as his character popped out from being 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional, Cal can still remain a 2-dimensional kind of person. You know what I mean? Like, a not kind of out of focus. Like, Maggie's the focus of that scene, but then also he's kind of a good backdrop to have.
Yeah, he is a good backdrop. Yeah,
it's almost like a foil to her. You're like, in a way, like, I can't believe we're still working with those assholes, and she has to kind of force herself to hold her tongue. So he's saying what we're saying. We're thinking.
FYI.
Was that?
As Carol does later on, FYI.
Indeed. But in fact, I mean...
Everybody's biting their tongues based on being loyal to Rick, but nobody believes a word of it. Maggie's like, yep, we have to try and make it work or whatever, even though like she doesn't agree with it one bit. Carol's like, yep, because every life is valuable.
Now, Carol, I'm not sure about, by the way. Carol...
She said it, she did not. She, at least with this guy, she did not buy it. Like, she's doing it because she feels that she should, out of loyalty to to Rick, and that's fine. This is what we're doing. But I don't think that she's fully bought into Rick. She may not be at the point of Maggie, not like that, but I don't think that she buys it. I don't think that she...
Well, you know what we'll do? We'll get to that. I like to put a flag in that because there are things that happen that kind of make me think that maybe not. Like, there's a chance that... I'm not saying she's on board, but I will say that I do think things happen that make me start to think, okay, maybe she's a fence sitter for once in her life instead of being in extremes.
Yeah, no, I don't think she's an extreme in the situation. I think that she could go either way. I think that it depends on the situation. But she declares it, though. Do you remember when she says, she kind of says, I feel like I could do it all over again, where I could just, what did she say? End it before it begins? Yeah, end it before it begins.
Which is her thing. It's her thing. That's what she does. She'll go to the mat to try to save everybody. Almost to a like, okay, you could have dialed that back a little bit. I mean, every time I see her do something, I'm like, awesome, but I think you did a little too much here. Like, I think you almost could have killed them, the people you're trying to save. Good thing, but okay. You're good, but like, you remember the prison, okay? Dial it back.
Yeah, what she does.
Which is why she's a badass, obviously.
She's a badass, and she saved them from Terminus, or at Terminus.
Yeah, it's a good thing she didn't kill anybody. But, okay, but yes, taking a step back, I want to kind of just fart this one thing that I saw out, because I know it's probably nothing, but do you remember, so that scene where Rick goes to Carl's little plot and then comes back upstairs to see Michonne, she's awake, she's working on the thing. So when Rick gets into the room, Michonne has this, like, little smudge on her arm.
Okay.
Did you notice this? She has, like, this little smudge of something on her arm.
No, I didn't catch that.
And she makes a distinct kind of effort to kind of, lick her thumb and, like, wipe it off. And I'm, like, wondering to myself, why is that in the scene? Like, why is this little... I mean, I was thinking, okay, it's probably drool or something, but it looked sticky or something. I don't know why I think of these things. I always think of these little things. Like, do you remember the blue paint? Okay, do you remember Jadis was painting in blue in the heaps?
Yeah.
And I compared it to the blue handprint of Carl and Judith on the porch.
I know what you're saying. When they highlight something, you do imagine that it must mean something.
Yeah, and I really wanted to ask somebody about that, but then there's a scene like this. It's like, well, couldn't they have just yelled cut or something? Or so, you know what I mean? It's like one of those scenes where, like, they could have just yelled cut and just did the scene over again. And without the smudge on the arm. I know it's really weird. That's what I do. This is me on the show. This is how I operate. So
it's fine.
Yeah, I know. He comes in. She quickly takes it, and it's on her left arm, so he doesn't see it as he walks in. So I don't know. Maybe she was masturbating. Anyway, so let's move on.
I think that
I snuck that in. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I wasn't paying too close attention, other than the fact that I know that she was writing the rules for a new society or that whole thing. Which, by the way,
totally frustrating, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because that's the one thing about I can appreciate the scenes with Judith and Rick and Michonne having fun and whatever, taking a break. They're always saying taking a break. I can afford to take a break, and then I'm saying no. I'm literally screaming in my head, no, you can't get this charter shat out at least in a rough draft so that everybody can see it, see what you've got, because you need that thing now more than ever, because everybody keeps talking about it something bigger than themselves, not so the rules aren't held up by any one person. I'm losing my goddamn mind.
Yeah.
And you're taking a break, and then I'm like, okay, fine, I'll enjoy this. And I did, because you see them having fun. It's kind of all right, I'm not begrudging you. We need things like this because it can't just be all about tension.
It doesn't have to be all about tension. I mean, I don't know. It was all right. You know how I feel. No,
and I'm with you, actually. I'm totally 100% with you, because I wasn't all lovey-dovey and oh, it's so cute. I was more this is nice. And I, by the way, and it's this is nice, and I didn't write any notes on that whole scene, except for when they got to the end when he's reading out of The Wizard of Oz, and I kind of want to read that back to you.
Okay.
Because it's prescient, okay? And it sums up Rick in a nutshell. Let me see here. Where are you? Okay, there it is. Okay. So, but as the hours passed and nothing terrible happened, she stopped worrying and resolved to wait calmly and see what the future would bring. At last, she crawled over the swaying... My screen just flashed. The swaying floor to her bed and laid down upon it. It's obviously the house is rocking back and forth. And Toto lay down beside her. In spite of the swaying of the house and the wailing of the wind, Dorothy soon closed her eyes and fell fast asleep. This is Rick's death scene.
Oh my gosh.
But it's the idea that like somebody that's ignoring clear and present danger that's all around them and deciding to go to sleep. Like, are you out of your mind?
I hear you.
Yeah. But there are little elements where that's kind of, other than the obvious thing of like, you know, just resolving to wait calmly and see what the future would bring. That's a key phrase. That seems to be all about Rick. Instead of like addressing and taking them seriously in a calm fashion.
I can see that.
You know? But then there's the idea that, like, you know, the last part of ignoring things. But the thing that kind of want to, like, thread is that you have the idea of, like, baby Hershel. And on the one hand, and Judith, obviously, but baby Hershel, I'm, like, doing hand motions. Nobody can see them. But then there's baby Hershel, and Maggie says two things at the same time. Certainly, Rick's idea is way better for Hershel. She says this last. But what she says first is that, like, I would have wanted to see that future where Glenn could be a part of that. You know, baby Hershel was robbed of Glenn, of his father and stuff like, you know what I mean? But she admits that, like, okay, this world that Rick wants to build is a better world for my son,
for my child. Yeah.
So, and then you tie that into the future, and it's kind of like, well, waiting calmly and blah blah blah. So it does, like, bring about the idea that, yes, the pendulum is swinging, not violently, but it's definitely swinging wide. And the show is easing you into the points of view. And then right near the middle is where Maggie is mentioning this thing. Like, okay, on the one hand, I was robbed, or Hershel was robbed. But on the other hand, I want a better world for Hershel.
Right.
So this is like the middle of the episode, you know, kind of, right, I think? So that's the only thing I really wanted to write down, because it's frustrating as all hell. Because I'm with you. I don't dig. There's a part of me that's like totally about what Rick's talking about, but then there's the other part was like, listen to Daryl. Daryl's defeated. Right. He doesn't want to do anything anymore. Daryl, aka my colleague John at work, who's listening right now.
Who also feels defeated.
Yes, John also feels defeated at work. It's just frustrating. Like, our boss doesn't listen to us. He has his vision, and he just sidelines all of our ideas. So there you go.
Let it out.
This is squawking therapy.
Yeah, don't hold back.
We're a service, and we talk about we try to solve everybody else's problems.
Yep, that's what we're here for. Let it out.
By the way, John is the Daryl of our office, by the way. I can't even tell you. If you met him, you would entirely say the same thing. He just spits out swears, whatever. He's funny as hell, but, you know, it's just, the grunting, the kind of like, the attitude, you know what I mean? Like, just constantly going about. But he's also kind of like he's our office hero. I'm like totally puffing his chest right now because I know he's listening, but it's true. Like, he's kind of our hero. He kind of, in a way, we kind of see him as a leader, kind of like Daryl. Do you know what I mean? So, but on the other hand, you know, sometimes that leadership role kind of, it's like hot potato. And sometimes in his hands, he just kind of wants to get rid of it because I know that mother effer doesn't want the attention. So I just figured I'd give him a little shout out, a little flattering shout out, because he is like that. And we love Daryl, and so I love John. So there we go.
Oh, how kind. That's great.
It's nice to know that we have Daryls out there in the world,
looking out for everybody else's best interests
while simultaneously not. Grunting and swearing in the wind. And just to close the book on this thing, because I don't want to ever have to go to this play date thing, is I love that little BTS scene where, like, one of the twins at least is calling Rick Big Stinky or Uncle Stinky or something like that.
Oh,
because he was in the meat suit when they first introduced her.
How funny! And
she has to spray water on him because he stinks. And like, literally Andrew Lincoln, not like Rick Grimes.
Right.
The little actress. That was adorable. Like, the whole
it was cute.
Stick fighting thing. I was nonplussed about it. I thought it was sweet. We needed it, etc. Totally needed it.
It's so funny that that's what you thought, that it was so sweet. I thought to myself the whole time, I was like, good, get her trained. Like, I was watching it.
It's like a Trojan horse. We're training her to.
Yeah, I was watching it. I was like, awesome. That's right. Get her trained. Get her ready.
Meanwhile, I'm thinking, oh, she dead. That ain't no training.
It reminded me of like Wonder Woman, you know, when she lives on the island and she's like going through her training. I'm like, yeah.
Whoa, so you actually did have some thoughts about that.
I did. That's how I interpreted it. I was like, cool. All right, get this little girl ready.
Yeah, so that nobody jacks her up, because, yeah, that might happen.
Look, stuff might happen. I mean, just saying.
Yeah. Oh, well.
An apocalypse. Goodness sake.
Yes. Okay. I'm just throwing off my game. Okay, so the Civil War thing, Rick comes about, breaks up the thing, and the Alden comes up. Oh, so there's a little scene where Alden comes up to Rick and Maggie, and he's really just trying to say, look, a little bit of firearms with key people, might mean the difference between them just walking off and leaving the project. I mean, not only the project of the bridge, but the project of living together.
He also kind of mentions, like, maybe you don't necessarily give them everybody back their weapons, but maybe if like one of them or a couple of trusted them are armed, then it would go a long way.
Yeah, like Laura, who clearly wants
who clearly is right, who clearly wants people to stay together. And himself too, who was
even Arat, by the way, like, which is, it's kind of sad because given what we know that happens at the end of the episode, it's like that kind of sucks, but that's what happens. But yeah,
there is this saying called, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's the sad reality.
Well, it's kind of sad because you really see Arat trying to, like, between the scene with Rosita in the last episode and, her in this episode really kind of also with Laura in a way, just kind of trying to make things work. She's not like with DJ, the guy with the beard, and Matt Magnum, and Jed, obviously Jed, who we thought was Mud. Well, they probably do call him Mud. But, not being like them, just kind of being like, okay, slow down, we don't want to do anything that we can't go back from. And so yeah, I mean, I get it, it's sad, move on. Yeah, it's sad, and obviously we'll get to it, we'll definitely get to it,
right?
Because just this whole I guess we could talk about it, the whole Anne and Gabe thing, because Rick starts it off where, well, actually not Rick, but when they were doing that Civil War kind of scene where they're,
Anne is accused.
Yeah, Anne is accused by one of the saviors.
Right. And Rick wants to kind of basically make sure that's not an option. The same way he investigated Daryl, basically.
Yeah, cop hat.
Right. He basically,
trying to rule it out.
Ask Gabriel, like, does he, was Anne with him, when he was on watch? Does he, just kind of questioning her whereabouts, anything that he knows. And basically it's just sort of like, keep an eye on her,
I guess I have to ask the question of you, by the way, because it's kind of like... Yes. Because it's tough to answer.
Okay.
Do you think Jadis, I'm calling her Jadis again, can afford to have all these secrets? Or more to the point, it's kind of like, have these secrets is fine, but after a while, the jig is kind of up, you know what I mean? And you kind of have to, like, if you really do... It's reflexive too, like, because by the end of the episode you get the feeling that, like, she's putting a lot of pressure on Gabe to kind of side with her, quote unquote, and Gabe is kind of like, not like this, like, it's not your way or the highway. I care about you, but we can talk about this. We should talk about this. And she just sees it as, it's, if you're not with me, you're against me. And she's not giving him enough equity to kind of like bring him around, you know what I mean? It's not your way or the highway. And if you really do care about somebody, you give him a little rope, she tried to. I mean, she tried to explain the situation, blah, 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 but just from the beginning, it's kind of like, there's some serious things going on in the camp, and I know you don't want to be blamed. I know you don't want to feel like the outsider. I get it. I defended you. I lied for you, but give me something.
Right.
So what did you think about that whole, like,
the whole Anne situation?
Yeah.
That whole situation.
Frustrating.
I mean, I'm just intrigued. About, like, what's going on and who she knows. I mean, she goes back to the trash heap, and goes to that stash, which was the same container where she took out, like, the applesauce in...
Was it, though? Doesn't really matter, I guess. It doesn't have to be honest.
It doesn't have to be, but basically it's like I got that impression from whatever season that was. I don't know if it was last season or the season before, when she went into that trash heap, into that area and got some applesauce.
Oh, yeah, it was right after all her people, her Walker people were chunked up.
It just kind of gave me the impression of, like, I don't know, this there's more to this chick. There's more there. Like, she has this stash of, like, a food. I don't know. Like,
especially with the symbol on it, which is the same symbol that's on the helicopter, by the way.
Right.
The only thing I wasn't sure about is whether they were the Commonwealth. But I knew for sure that the helicopter had the 3-circle symbol, and the lid on the top had the 3-circle symbol.
It's all part of the same government base.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And we're assuming it's a safe
Allegedly.
assumption. Yeah. Well, we never know. We really don't. And maybe. And by the way, it's kind of like what you were saying. Like, it could be a situation where there's more than one big dog, and maybe Georgie's not 100% on board with that other big dog. You know what I mean? So, or it could be a part of the same kind of amalgam, but And this would be a clever thing for them to do, is that with all the things that are going on with between the Saviors and the rest of the gang, wouldn't it be kind of cool to have a larger scale version of that with all these kind of big dogs, like, you know, the people with the helicopters and the big community that Jay just talks about with Gabe's, like, it's unlike anything you've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't it be funny?
When she said that, it definitely made me feel like the Commonwealth.
Right, but wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if that bigger kind of government community also has the same kind of issues? Like, you know, we don't trust them. They don't, you know, if this thing happened, oh, it's them. You know, it would be a good parallel to have, right?
Could be. And the comic book, they have it pretty good, though. They got, like, Starbucks. They got movie theaters.
So you were for real with that, right?
No, it's like, it's serious. Like, I mean, it's basically almost like it never happened. Like, they just basically, like, the government just had this, like I've always said, the mother of all bunkers exists. It does exist. And in the comic book, this was set up and this was protected, and, you know, they have luxuries, you know, not like, oh, well, we've got food and we've grown crops. It's like, no, they're past that.
Yeah, talk about season 1 vibes, right? I mean, you're going to see some of that CDC stuff and whatever's going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll even see that in season 9, by the way?
This community?
Well, yeah, I'm calling them the big dogs because we don't know.
I call them the government.
Yeah. But are they, though?
Well, in the comic book, they basically, like, I mean, they don't go so far to say plain out this is the U.S. government, but I mean, it's pretty implied, you know?
Yeah, like Pennsylvania. Wasn't the Pennsylvania Commonwealth originally?
Yes.
Which is the whole point? Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I learned into history classes.
Yeah, I should know. I lived in Philadelphia for 5 years, so I should definitely know.
Did?
I went to college in Philly.
Oh, that's right. Is that living, though, in Pennsylvania?
I mean, I
don't consider college living in Pennsylvania.
I don't know. I spent most of my year there. So it was like, okay, I would come back for a few months and then head back. So it's like 9 months out of the year over there.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I when I did the Chicago thing, I kind of went for school and then I came back and then I kind of kept going back and forth after I was trying to squat there for a little while. I'm like a hobo. I'm still a hobo.
Listen, it's whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, it is whatever floats my hobo.
Gosh. Whatever gets you through the night.
Yeah. A warm blanket.
A warm blanket.
A cup of coffee that I'm clinging to that's already cold. Oh, man. Anyway.
That's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah. Lucky me, though. That's not me now.
That's good.
But I think of what could have been.
Oh, my God.
The guns. Rick and Maggie, after Alden, Rick and Maggie talk to the side, Rick and Maggie kind of go off and they're like, I don't want to arm them. But again, Maggie biting her tongue and she's like, you know, but they're dying and, what are we going to do? We need them to finish the bridge work. It's only them now. It's like no Hilltop people and anything. So, and by the way, it's because of her crazy ass, cards on the, nuts on the table, deal, like her deal about the Saviors doing most of the work. Well, you kind of get what you pay for. Like now Saviors are being hunted down and now they don't want to work, so you kind of screwed the pooch here.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit. Like if it wasn't for it being mostly the Saviors now, like okay, we could probably maybe we wouldn't finish in time, but we'd be able to finish. So I just thought that was interesting. Like she was pushing for, which is probably more of a reason why she kind of bit her tongue and nodded her head. She's like, okay, you're right. If we want this thing to get done, we got to get these Saviors back and feel safe.
Right.
So. God damn. Okay, so let's take the two scenes. The one with Maggie and Cindy covering their part of the grid. And a lot of people mentioned the nod of that little Chevy pickup in the background with the gas station. The gas pump. As a nod to one of the Night of the Living Dead references.
Oh, really?
I'll tell you what. I don't really care. But it's noted in that scene, and I just thought I'd throw it out there. Look, whatever. Anyway.
Go ahead.
Goodbye, everybody.
Don't hold back.
Moving on. No, it's not like I hate it, but it's like it's not our show. I love horror elements, and I love like a nod to horror every now and again. But like, it's not what we do. It's nice, but then like you move on. We got to break it down. We got shit to do. So. So yeah, Cindy is taking Maggie to where Oceanside used to live. It's part of the grid that they're trying to search and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, knowing the entire time that, and it's the thing, you watched the episode already, so now when you're rewatching it, you're like, oh, she's paired off with Maggie on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of wants to be around her. She kind of want to sniffs her out because she knows the deal.
Yeah.
She knows what's what.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they're clearing walkers, the little nod to don't open dead inside with the fingers coming out of the door. And, and things are getting a little heated, and then Daryl and Rosita and all of them come to kind of save their asses because Cindy was looking worse for wear. But here's the thing. I didn't really think about it the first time I watched it, but in that melee, remember Cindy's wound that Enid stitches up and everything?
Yes.
Yeah, so what do you think about that? Because, you know what I mean? Like, Hilltop had that issue, you know what I mean? Like with the bloody axes and bow and arrows and stuff. And if she got that Jowl Walker blood in her hand, which...
that didn't even dawn on me. I didn't think about that.
That's what I'm saying.
I thought to myself, like, did she get that injury from, like, some of the other saviors that she had killed?
Well, the injury, yes, but the whole idea that her wound opened up and she was trying to, like, stop that walker from getting her. The one with that weird, that, like, cool, but really, really gross, like, that part of his jowls, like, his jaw was open, and she was using that hand to fend him off. So that blood going into that open wound.
I don't know. The show is inconsistent, though, with that sort of, like, thing.
I think it's a good pin to kind of plant, though, because, it did happen.
It did, but I feel like they go so back and forth with that kind of stuff. Like sometimes, like Rick will kill a walker and they explode all over his face or something, and like
and it gets into his eyes or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like nothing. Meanwhile, then Gabriel is like blinded.
That was then too. By the way, I can easily see it being like, okay, if it's a fresh walker, it's not so bad, But these, remember when we were talking about this, like, okay, it's been a while. These suckers have been out in the sun, the heat. And Roy, and even Negan says this, they've been like roasting in the hot sun and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden they do the trick, and then Gabriel gets sick, and then that's what they use as the device to kind of take over the hilltop. It's just get them all sick, and those who survive, those who don't, now they know. But they've been taking such a good care to kind of keep continuity, even with things that were discussed in 7 and 8 and all that stuff. Daryl mentioning why don't they get this future, blah blah blah. So I mean, that's why otherwise I wouldn't care, but like I think it's a good pin to kind of put in, because if something's got to happen. They got really sick. It took them a long time. Tobin took a long time to turn, but I can easily see it happening.
I don't know. I don't think it will.
And then what happens if it does, though? That's the thing. Like, what do we, what I mean? What happens? So I don't know. And they did this crazy thing at the end and blah blah blah. But I don't know. But that's the thing. Right after that, they found out, like, okay, Beatrice and Kathy and Rachel, like all those Oceanside people were supposed to be in Grid 5. We didn't, and they went missing, and they find her, and then you realize, okay, I've watched the episode, so Beatrice is faking getting hurt.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Arata's kidnapped.
Right.
So she's trying to throw the scent off of them.
Right.
So mad.
So mad at that?
Like, I don't want to be mad at Brianna Venskis, but I am.
Why?
Because it's tricky. You're tricking everybody.
Good for them.
You know what I mean? Smooth. See, this is where the part we're getting where we don't we're not going to necessarily disagree, because like I'm not heartless, but yeah. So we're actually at that part with the tent, though. The Jerry, Cindy, Maggie, Carol, Rick, and it's very interesting. It's a very interesting watch when you've watched it the first time around, and now you're watching the second watch, because you see how everybody looks as people start saying things. When Jerry speaks up and he says, "Is this going to be a Gregory or a Negan situation?" You look at Rick, you look at Rick, and you look at, but mostly Maggie, and it's kind of like like kind of situation,
right?
And Rick and Maggie are both looking at each other because they know how they feel about each other, like how about what the other person did, and they're kind of looking at the floor, and Cindy has her face on the ground, and then she finally speaks up. Well, then she goes, "Well, whoever it is, that when the time comes, they'll get what they deserve." This is what you were saying before. And the first thing I said the first thing I wrote when I finally saw her say this, do you know that like little thing where the dude says "got him"? The D's nuts thing. You ever see that clip?
Oh no.
It's okay. Well, I'll put it up or something like that. But it's like the guy basically tries to prank call somebody. And, is D there? Oh, he goes, D? Who's D? D's nuts. And he goes, I got him. And then like that's what I thought when I saw Cindy and she said that. It's like, got him. Like, oh, I got you, Cindy. I got you. I know you are. Oh, my screen just went blank.
Oh no.
I don't know how long this lasts. 11:09. We've only been talking an hour.
No, over that.
Oh no, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh hey, my peep screen is still working. That's weird. Give me a sec. Oh, that's not gonna work. That is not gonna work at all. Maybe I can really quickly do something. Well, that's not working. Yeah, my screens are blank. Time to pull out the trusty phone to get my notes. Yeah, let's go back here. Give me 1 sec. Okay. Oh, I've got my interview notes open. Piece of poop. Okay, yeah, the perp and thing, the Jerry, and the got him. And then, okay, so yeah, we have to really kind of get into the Rick and Carol thing, because I kind of want to expose that a little bit. And Rick has a weak moment, and he's confiding in Carol. He's like saying, you know, should the Saviors be a part of this? You know, like, like Rick's conversation with Daryl is kind of getting him. He's kind of listening to him right now, and he's trying to I think he wants to get Carol's take. And Carol flat out answers, you know, she gets it. It's like, you know, it's like not your choice or mine.
Right.
You know, they just have to want it like the rest of us, you know? Yeah. And put a flag in what she says right there, because obviously when things kind of start to unravel, it's spoken about, you know? So Rick starts to confide in her, and he says, you know, well, Carol starts by saying, like, you know, it happened today. I felt like I needed to end it before it began, but, you know, she stopped. And she stopped herself. She was calm. She was like, I'm giving this thing a try. And Rick just finally, like, admits, like, I'm not blind, I'm not stupid, I feel it every fucking morning. You know, every morning it's like I want to kill, kill, and then proceed to kill Negan, then proceed to kill all of them, what they've done, which is savage Rick is savage, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. He remembers, you know, he starts with Carl, and then he just remembers all the people that they've lost, all of them along the way, like Andrea, you know, everybody, Hershel, Lori, Carl, and then it's like, you know, at some point, you know, what's the point? You know, if I'm trying to build this future, what's the point? If I'm not honoring them, you know, by continuing to take life. We honor them by building life, and not taking it. Because at a certain point, it's not sustainable. Like, there's no way to live. Like, at some point, you have to live for something, not for just like another day, right? And it has to mean something at some point, and it's a big thing to kind of admit, like, it's there with him, you know. It's always there with him. Now hold that, because I'm going to skip right over to where Jed and DJ hold him hostage, okay? Like, and I love the scene. Jed is making walker noises, right? And Carol and Rick, like, they nod and like, yeah, I'll get him. You know, we'll take him out. And then they have this hostage situation. Now, like, here's the thing. Jed says, while Carol is, like, preparing the knife, he says, yes, he actually says, I believe in your idea, Rick. But right now, it's like people are hunting us down, and this is not about me trying to start trouble. It's about, you know, we just need arms. We need to protect ourselves. Like, he's an unsavory dude, but the fact that he admits that, like, I'm on board, man. I'm actually on board.
Right.
So between his conversation with Carol, him admitting that out loud, and then Rick and Carol, you know, obviously they have to faint, like they're giving up, and then they take him over. I think that reaches their ears, because in my mind, there's no reason to keep Jed alive, right? But they do it anyway,
right?
And I think it's because of what he said. I don't think and this is the one thing, like, you know, we can easily love the show, but there's some things that you can critique, right? And I think they should have emphasized what he said a little bit more, because it's important. Because you're looking at these saviors, you're looking at guys like Jed, like eating the tomato in front of Maggie and kind of being a dick.
Sort of.
Or like Cal says, like an asshole, like being threatening, being like getting in her face and stuff like that. Like, oh, I know you, the widow. I know you.
Right.
And you get like a really bad impression. Like, he punches Alden in the face. Like, you're not one of us. He's like, you know, like, let's start trouble. You know, you're not one of us. You're not suffering like we are. And so you don't really feel remorse for him. And especially now that they're trying to take out Carol and Rick, right? Or especially Carol. So when he says what he says about, like, you know, I want to be on board, they could have really done a little bit better with that. I think they really could have, because it would give you a little kind of like break in what you usually think about this dude. And you kind of to feel it, you know, like to feel like, dude, I'm on board. I want to see the future that you're seeing, but at the moment we're kind of screwed.
Right.
Which is essentially what he says. It just didn't pack the right punch, I think. And it should have. So that's that is definitely a criticism. Because I think that scene is meant to kind of break them out of the moment, to kind of like say, oh wait. Because he had just asked her, do they deserve this future? You know, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't think so, because between what Daryl saying and blah, 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 and what's going on, and being threatening, and being a jagoff. So they could have used that as a punch, like, moment, like, to kind of say, like, dude, we're trying.
Right.
You know, so Anyway, I just wanted to say that because it's easy to miss. Because you're looking at Carol's knife. You're not listening to what he's saying. You're just hearing talky, talky, talk.
True. Good point.
And then they immediately patch him up. And Carol, kind of rattles off the line. Like, because every life counts. But that's the thing. I think she is kind of getting Rick. She could easily not have said a word because that's Carol. She's kind of serious when it comes down to it.
I don't know.
It's just a feeling. I don't think she's totally on board with Rick, but I think that compared to Maggie.
Oh, no, yeah. Definitely compared to Maggie. Like, Maggie
she's definitely on the fence.
She's on the fence, yeah. She's sort of like, ugh, I could have killed this guy. I really don't care about this person, but, well, I'll take one for the team and do it for Rick.
Yeah. Or do it for, I think also kind of do it for herself, too, when you think about it. Because, like, if you're feeling like you can go the other way, every little bit that you can do is one less. It's like the sobriety thing. Going off the wagon. Like, it's, what is the expression? Every day counts. No, what is it? Help me out here.
I don't know.
Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Not like every day's a gift. That's stupid. One day at a time. That's what it is. And that's Carol's like little sobriety lesson. Like, if I let this guy live, it's just one. That's today. Tomorrow's another challenge. I'll beat that challenge. That kind of thing. Like, it's like Murderers Anonymous.
yeah. There you
or
go.
Slaughterers Anonymous essay.
Yeah, but she's so like disgusted with this dude, which I don't blame her.
Everybody is. I am.
Ugh.
I have only a tiny bit of sympathy for what he said right there. And it's kind of like, okay, so he is sort of like on board, but oof. All right, let's skip to that part at the end where, or not at the end, but like Maggie and Daryl, they're talking and they spot the ethanol. They're basically in the scene. They're that beginning scene basically where we saw Justin turn with the warning signs and then the final warning in the corner, and they see the ethanol in the foreview as they walk up to it. So they know what's up. They know they found the area with which the ethanol was stolen, brought to, and all that stuff.
And the harpoon.
Yeah, and the harpoon. That's right. And Daryl knows. Daryl has a suspicion.
Knows. He said, well, not even a suspicion. He says, I know who took them.
Oh, because they found the harpoon first when they surveyed the scene, right? Because he pulled it out of the walker. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So he was like, yep, I know who.
Right. And I think Maggie brings him to the spot, right? Because he obviously told her. And then Maggie, because she was with Cindy and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. Why don't you explain that scene a little bit?
Well, it's dark. And we see that Daryl and Rick are coming across a group. We're not immediately clear on who it is, but then we come to see that here's a Rot. She's still alive, but she's being held at gunpoint and weapons at least, by Cindy and the two other women, Beatrice and
Rachel.
Rachel is the other name? Oh, okay.
The little girl with where Tara gives the middle finger to. Do you remember her? That's her.
The little girl was there? I thought it was a woman.
She's growing up. Mimi Kirkland is growing up.
Oh, I don't know. Because she was tiny, that little Rachel girl.
Yeah. But she's a little teenager.
Maybe it was another Rachel. Maybe it's not the same Rachel.
Oh no, it's the same girl.
But it wasn't a little girl though. That was there.
It's the same girl. Yeah.
It was a little girl there.
She's a teenager. She's not a little girl anymore. She's.
Only 9 months to a year and a half have passed.
Preteen to a teen. It's the same girl. Trust me. We follow her. So, and she kind of featured her scene.
Really?
Same girl. Yeah, man. Yeah.
How do you go from tiny little girl to like?
It was not like teenager. Tiny. She was, she was
short.
Like
9.
Well, now she's 11 and a half. We meet Oceanside in season 7. So she's had 2 years, man. 2.5 maybe.
But weren't they involved with the assault on like the saviors in season 8? Like when they all came out like Ewoks and threw their little things.
I love that. Every time, man. Every time.
But they were like Ewoks. I mean, it was fine. I love the Ewoks. They're my favorite part of Return of the Jedi. But I'm just saying.
They're not. Just shut your mouth.
They are my favorite part. Like, look, that's me. And not everybody has to agree with that. But I love those little Ewoks. They're great.
Yeah, well, that's the point, though. I don't even know if we see the actress in that raid scene. You know what I mean?
Okay. Oh, okay. So maybe not. I don't know. Maybe we didn't see her.
Yeah, maybe not. It's true.
But in any case, so you have these group of ladies from Oceanside. They have a Rot on her knees and basically asking her to beg. Everyone's in tears. The women from Oceanside are in tears. A Rot is in tears.
Because they're explaining the story. They're explaining the background.
This is before that even happens. It's like, I mean, clearly the women from Oceanside are distraught and upset. And, a Rot is like scared for her life.
A Rot is like soaked with tears.
And then, when Rick and Daryl and Maggie come across and
If only.
Oh my gosh. And then they basically, kind of like, hey, what's going on and whatever. And, Cindy then goes on to kind of go into the story about how this was once where basically before Oceanside had to become Oceanside and run off, this is kind of where they kind of camped out essentially.
Right.
And, and then Simon came along and basically, did what he did in terms of just basically slaughtering, all the men and boys. And in particular, Cindy talks about her brother, who I think was 11, is what she says.
They slaughtered her mother and then
her mother and then, basically like tortured her essentially by asking her to like beg for her brother's, her life or his life or whatever, and still ended up like murdering him in front of her. And I mean, it was, and basically at the hands of Arad, who does not deny that any of it happened, obviously.
Right. Say it. What did you say?
Right. Exactly. And, Maggie.
No exceptions.
Yeah. And Maggie and Rick asked, it's like, Maggie and Rick, God. Maggie and Daryl, asked, what did she say? And she, owns up to, what she said, which is no exceptions. I think she basically went through with it. And at that point, Maggie basically, well, before that, we even get to that, basically Cindy says that, they decided to go about doing this. And first of all, they tell them that this is the last one. This is the last savior that they'll kill, because apparently it seems like they were going after all the saviors who, I guess, in particular were involved with this raid that happened there.
And the reason why they decided to go after them, because they weren't going to.
Right. But essentially, like Maggie executing Gregory the way she did basically made them feel emboldened, essentially, to kind of do this, because they felt that they didn't have to just do what Rick says and treat them, and turn the other cheek.
Their words exactly. Rick's word. Yeah. We found out that Rick's rules weren't the only rules.
They're not the only rules, like if you do what you see fit. And I still remember Maggie said the punishment fits the crime,
Well, she said it out loud though. You did this because of me?
Right.
And there was like that moment where I'm like,
she was momentarily horrified. She was momentarily horrified that they would go on a killing spree because of her.
Right.
Like, I think that she was momentarily horrified of that. However, that all changed upon hearing what happened. And as they start to hear what happened at Oceanside, and Arad cops up to what she did and what she said, that it's at that point that Maggie, as far as I'm concerned, basically gives the order to proceed with the execution the way she did with Gregory, because by turning her back and walking away while Arad's like, screaming for them to come back, basically she's allowing it to happen. She's sort of like, do what you got to do.
Because you have to note the fact that she really gives her best effort to say, don't do what you're doing. She really did try. And I was noting that because it's kind of like, as much as she bit her tongue, and you have to think back to her conversation with Daryl in this episode. She's like, you know what? I'm doing this for Hershel. I don't want to have to do this, but this way is a way better way to raise a son. Mm-hmm. And so when you get back to the scene, she's really trying to give her best effort. She's not biting her tongue. She's like, don't do this. You do this, you can't come back from this.
Right.
And then Cindy. So at that point, when Cindy says what she says about Gregory, it begins like this little spark, and obviously Maggie's horrified. She is horrified. In the moment, she's like, the thing that I did that I thought was just fully 100%, no regrets. That thing made you think that you could do this thing?
Right.
And then you hear all the stuff, like you said, you hear all the stuff, and by the way, when you heard all of this, were you not brought back to like Glenn's death and Abraham's death?
No, I wasn't brought back to that. I just internalized it and basically thought of anything having to do with kids puts me over a level. And so basically, for me, I kind of thought of what if that was my kid, my child, or whatever.
My brother, you have a brother too.
I do, but I think about kids, because my brother's an adult, so I think about
still a kid.
A boy. But you know what I mean? I think of like an innocent, boy. It's that is, just horrifying. And so at the end of the day, you could say to Cindy, it's okay, well, you can't come back from what you did, but I can argue and say, Arad, you can't come back from what you did.
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
It's what happened, and you cannot, no level of remorse can take away what you did or rectify what you did. So to me, when people talk about was that the right thing? Was, should
it's definitely not the right thing. Well,
I think it was. Sorry.
This is the struggle that I'm having.
I don't struggle. I would have been exactly like Maggie, turn around and let her do what she has to do.
And that's the thing. That's what I struggle with too. Cause it's kind of I was brought back to eyewitnessing the brutal death of Glenn and Abraham. am.
But that's what happened to her, Cindy's brother.
Exactly. And
Right.
I keep thinking to myself, this is an impossible situation. As much as you want to hold back. I didn't even write notes to say, what if she did tell her to stop? Well, no, I didn't. I couldn't. There was a point at which I could not justify. It's not even justify. It's like I couldn't. What choice did she have? What choice did she and Daryl have? There's just, you can't. There isn't. It's not. You know what I mean?
No. I mean,
how can you argue with that? How could you?
No, you can't argue with it. Like basically, you say like, well, if it was Rick would have tried to argue like and say some philosophical bullshit on like, you know, how we all have to like build towards the future and the past is the past. To get out of here with that, like. But this is me. I'm the kind of person who holds a grudge to the very end. Like I will not let things go ever. FYI. Yeah, never.
Where's Eddie? Oh, I can't see.
No. No, he'll tell you. It's like, I can't. So something like that, you're marked for death in my book. So like at the end of the day, like, it broke my heart for Cindy's character. It like was devastating to hear like that pain and anguish. But in my mind, like when Maggie and Daryl turned around, I was like, good for you. Exactly. Like this is what you get. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's it.
See, I don't 100% agree with that, but at the same time, like I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and I'm looking at Daryl and Maggie, and I'm like, this is too much for you. It's just too much for you. I can't. Like I'm literally sitting there, and I'm like,
I don't think the thing is too much for them. I think that they're sort of like, fuck this bitch, let her get killed.
I don't think so.
I think so purely because after the fact, like Maggie's like, you know, we tried to do it this way, it doesn't work. We got to go after Negan now and finish this, and you know, Daryl's on board.
No, I don't disagree with that. I'm 100% with you on that. Like, but it's just this one thing where it's kind of like there's a little, like, you know, that little you're wiggling the tooth, right? And like it's like what chance I'm like sitting there like talking to them, and I'm saying I can't expect you to say anything against that, you know? And then when they actually start walking away, I'm like, I get it. You don't want to say anything, but at the same time, you can't argue with that. You just can't. You can't.
I think that they were
that.
happy that Urag got killed.
I don't know about happy. That's the thing.
I don't think about happy.
There's nothing to say. You know.
I think that Maggie feels that the punishment should fit the crime. Well, I think that's Maggie's mantra.
I think on the forefront. I think she feels a whole bunch of things though. But yeah, let's get to the part where because after the scene, it's like a reckoning. It's like Maggie confronting herself because Cindy is her. She is the leader of Oceanside. She is the leader of Hilltop. And they see everything in each other.
Right, but Maggie doesn't have that moment of like, oh my God, I'm looking at this mirror. Like, I'm glad that they didn't.
No, I think she does. When she says, you enabled me to do this. You know, you enabled us to do this, finding out that there are other rules.
Right, but I think she's momentarily horrified, and I think they did that momentarily bullshit moment that they do on shows like, oh my God, is this how I am? This is horrifying. I don't want to be this way. And then that shit got thrown out the window, and I'm like, thank you. Like, don't try to like act like I'm horrified that this is the person that I am. Stand by your like actions, like as horrific as they may be. Like stand by your actions and stand by your convictions on why you're doing it.
But I don't think that's what's happening though. I mean, not to belabor the point, but
no, but I think she had that moment where she was horrified. However, you know what it reminded me of in a way? Did you ever see the movie Dead Man Walking?
I must have.
I mean, it's so old. I mean, it's like back from like the 90s.
Is it Sean Penn?
Yeah, it was Sean Penn and Susan Sarandon. But the thing that always struck me,
I saw it in theaters, I think.
The thing that struck me about Dead Man Walking is that the whole movie, you know, from people who don't know, because I mean, we are aging ourselves. This movie came out probably like 30
considering that
years
I saw it in theaters.
Yeah, it was like probably came out 25, 30 years ago. But
there you go.
Anyway.
No, a little less, but
look, 1994 was what, 25 years ago?
25 probably, yeah.
Because like Nirvana's In Utero just turned 25 years.
Yeah.
Okay, just saying.
Keep going. Let's not dwell on this.
Let's not dwell on this anymore.
Yeah, on our age. Yeah.
So anyway, so the premise of Dead Man Walking is basically you have Sean Penn's character who is convicted of a horrific crime. We don't see the crime necessarily. We know that that involved murder of two people, and he is sentenced to death. But he's assigned this nun, you know, to basically kind of bestow on him his last rites before, you know, all this. But it's not like a day before or something like that. It's like they have periodic meetings where basically
over time
with him over time and counsels him, you know, to prepare him for what's going to happen. And she, you know, already she's a nun, so obviously her stance is against the death penalty, you know, which ends up becoming a very very testy situation because obviously the families of the victims are very angry at her and they're just like, sister, why in the world? Like, how in the world can you, you know, support this savage or whatever, you know? And meanwhile, she's like, you know, obviously like, no, you know, like everybody's a child of God. bad and they deserve, like to have life. Who are we to determine that he shouldn't be allowed to live or whatever. And with time, you see more of him. Like, he's very defensive at first and very kind of standoffish, and eventually, she kind of brings down his defenses, and you kind of get to know this person, right? This person more, and we approach his execution closer because it is going to happen. It isn't, kind of appealed or whatever.
Right.
And, he starts, that day, the process of kind of like getting him ready to be put to death. And you feel horrible. You're watching this and you feel horrible because this person who you've started to get to know throughout this movie, that you've kind of like gotten to know, and you start to feel remorseful, like, oh my God, we're going to kill this person.
Or at least feel something, right?
Feel something for this person who seems remorseful at this point for what they've done. And now we're, marching them to certain death, where they're going to be executed in front of people for their satisfaction.
Right.
Because that's, that was how it's done. It's like he's going to get put to sleep by lethal injection.
Don't we still do that some places?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway.
So it's like he's gonna get put to sleep in this room with a mirrored or glass wall where like the family of the victims can watch.
Right.
I mean,
like it's a one-way mirror, right?
It's a one-way mirror.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, they know basically, like.
Well, he knows. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that's what's going on. And you feel horrible, because this guy's on a gurney and they're putting this IV into him, but as they do that, they splice in between that to the scenes of what happened that evening.
Right.
And you see the horrific crime, and you see what he did,
right.
And you see how he murdered these innocent people and raped a woman on top of it and murdered her. And every bit of sympathy that you had for that character went out the window, because like now visualizing and seeing what that person did, now you're just sort of like,
well, it's purposely confronting you with what you thought what you were presented with. I was going to say what you thought you knew, but like, do you know? Not really. But like,
no, until it's really kind of like, this is
you only
what
got
happened.
One side. Yeah.
Right. It's like, this is what happened to these two individuals at the hands of this person. Do you still feel the same way?
Right. Exactly.
And
it's philosophical, really, if you think about it.
No, it is. It is a philosophical question, and it's obviously something that gets thrown around all the time, obviously, in this country, and during this show. But
you're making social commentary. I'm rubbing off on you.
But this show is a social commentary, a good chunk of the time. Yeah. And I think that's what it is. And
it's a mini version of that, because you're seeing a rock go through this thing, and she's trying to she's trying to like be a part of, she's working with Rosita, the person she hurt.
I'm reformed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess so.
Or I'm trying to be reformed. I'm not that person.
Yeah, exactly. And you, I mean, look, tell me as you were watching her sobbing that there was a part of you that did feel like that Sean Penn moment, like.
No, but they did it exactly the same way they did in the show. Like there was that sobbing moment at the onset, and then you get the story, and then after you get the story, it's like a switch. Right. It's like nope, no sympathy.
I think also there's this moment too where you're kind of like, well, she is like, even she's like, she knows. I know there's no excuse. I know there's nothing for me to say.
Right.
And because if she was a bad person, that's what this is like a paradox, because if she was a bad person, she'd maybe try to find a way to like Gregory her way out of it, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? But
not a Maggie's watch. You can't Gregory your way out of it.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, no, and the bullshit detector is real, but
very real.
But that's the thing, like I think she knew what she did in that moment, and there was nothing for her to say, and that's what kind of made me feel for her at the end of the day. Like there's no running away from it. There's nothing I could do, and I think it's the effect of having to try to, for the future, to kind of be a part of this bigger world. Being a part of this bigger world. I thought maybe I could leave this behind me, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. And it's kind of like, and it's this paradox. It's kind of like, can we move past the bad things we've done? Like you said, Rick and killing the satellite station. Simon's satellite station, if you remember. And
listen, I hold a grudge, so I always bring up Rick's thing. I'm like, look,
but that's the thing. Everybody did something. Glenn did something. You know what I mean? We love Glenn, and he was remorseful. He was sick, and we have to reckon with that too. And I'm not saying that should change your mind. Not at all. I couldn't justify it. They did exactly what. I'm not saying exactly what I would have done, but they did exactly what my heart was feeling. I just could. There's nothing to say. There was just nothing to say. Are you still there?
Yeah. No, I'm here. I'm just. I mean, you know how I feel. I'm like, I was very, very happy when they turned away.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I could tell
because it was
shouting with glee.
Shouting with glee. I was like, yes.
Okay, but here's the thing, and okay, we know where we stand. But the one thing that I need to bring up, and this is something that the show has brought up in this episode, between Jerry saying, do we do it the Negan way or do we do it the Gregory way? And then Oceanside, Cindy saying, you helped us, you enabled us to do this. Rick's rules aren't the only rules. Jesus brings it up in the next episode. Who gets to decide? Rick made a decision on behalf of everybody else. Without he made a summary decision. Then you made a summary decision, and now you're making another one. Who are you to decide that you get to kill Negan? So it's like, this has got to stop. We got to have rules. And so the show is making a point. Like, even though you agree with Maggie, everybody agrees with Maggie. I agree with Maggie in a way, and not really entirely. But the show's making a point saying, like, look, what you're doing is totally understandable. Like, I get it. I was with you in that room, Jesus is saying. You, me, and Daryl. He specifically brings up the room, at the end of season 8. Yeah. We talked about this, but time has passed, and I realized with the recent events that if we're gonna do this, let's have a consensus. Let's all get together on this. You don't get to you're making the same mistake that Rick did, doing this right now, even though you're right, and we talked about it. If you do this, you're just as bad as Rick for keeping Negan alive. You made this decision on behalf of everybody else. So the show's not going to let it go. The show's not going to let what she did go. And it's going to find a way to keep inserting some sort of like, stop. And she might still keep going, We do see that, though, too. We do see that she does make it to in the sneak peeks, she does make it to Alexandria, or she's at least at the door. And if we are going to talk about sneak peeks, that scene with him and Daryl on the motorcycle?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so...
Looks like he throws him in a ditch?
Well, here's the thing. Do you realize what Daryl's trying to do?
No.
Daryl's trying to keep him away from Alexandria so that Maggie can do what she's got to do. For sure. And Rick finds out, and they have a little tussle, and then they fall into like this kind of fissure.
Yeah.
One of those, one of those things that we sometimes see on the news. What is it called? A pit? What are those things called? A sand pit? No.
No, I know what you're saying.
A sinkhole. A sinkhole.
Yes, a sinkhole.
A sinkhole is opened up on King's Highway or something, and like emergency rescuers are trying to patch it up, and it's like, okay, you go ahead.
That's a very
man
good
plans
point.
and God wins.
I did not
God
think about
laughs.
that, but you're right about that. That's true.
Yeah,
so Maggie can do what she needs to do.
Yeah, and by the way, I was right about another thing. It's that Maggie hanging Gregory. As much as we're kind of all on board, that's the springboard for everything to come. Everybody saw that. Everybody heard of it, and people are thinking. Jerry's thinking. Everybody has a thought on that, and like just like they did with Rick, keeping Negan alive. I mean, obviously the saviors were like, oh wait, there's another way to this, and so you saw it from that point of view, but you didn't see it from everybody else's point of view, and now we're starting to see it because of what Maggie did. Like Maggie's doing things that summarily without consulting everybody, like bigger than like taking charge and stuff like that. Like, what do I think about that?
Right.
And obviously, who do we follow? What are the rules? The only rule that we seem to have had is we're doing this so that we can have a better future for each other, and it's working. We're all together. We're bartering. We're trying to do the best that we can. This way can work. But old things, man. Old beef. And now the like we said in the beginning, the levees are breaking. The bridge is being tested. It's what I mean. Like, is the bridge going to hold up? That's a big deal. And now it might be out of their hands at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, and at the end of the episode, by the way, and we didn't mention this, and we should, but the saviors do walk off. They leave the bridge site, stopping that tomato along the way. Basically, Rick's dream, or Carl's dream of the future, effectively. So, but
that's the episode.
But in the sneak peek, they all kind of come back to the bridge site, by the way. So I wonder what gets them to come back.
I know, but that's where Rick sustains his injury.
Yeah, it seems to be there is some sort of injury. Like he's holding his side, right? The one one scene?
Yeah, it seems to be at that. No. Water went the wrong way.
Oh no! What a shame. What if that took you out in the apocalypse? Just, I drank water the wrong way. Buried me here.
That would be a damn shame.
It'd be the saddest Walking Dead death ever.
I remember a podcast that laughed about that, like when Rick was in the junkyard and all that, and he he fought that Winslow.
His underwear too.
Well, he was fighting Winslow, and he got the nail through the hand or whatever. And somebody was like, "Man, wouldn't it suck after all those years of fighting the apocalypse? It's like you die from like Hep C or something." From from like that would suck.
Goddamn tetanus.
Yeah.
I died from gangrene.
Yeah,
really?
Exactly. Exactly. You survive like freaking zombies, but not
Oh,
gang.
speaking of, holy crap, that scene with Gabe tied up on the floor.
Yeah, that's in a sneak peek too.
Yeah, and what is who does okay, this is the, so I'm sorry I'm testing you, but who does that walker that Jadis reveals look like?
Was it a lady?
Yep.
It was a lady, right? She had like pearls on and stuff.
Yeah, like, or at least like some sort of beaded necklace.
Yeah.
Yeah, it to me, it looked a lot like, and obviously it's not the same one, but it looks a lot like the one he made her sketch, the lady, the organist from his church. Yeah. So I wonder, like, okay, is she going full tilt? Is she faking? Is she trying to lure out these people? Or is she really just kind of pissed at Gabe?
I don't know.
Or what is this all about? Like, I don't know. As much as we've seen these scenes where she's testing Rick, she's testing Negan, we really don't know what the ends of these tests are because they've always been kind of interrupted.
Right.
Oh, one more thing worth bringing up, and I'm so glad that we brought up the Gabe scene, because do you remember how we assumed the A on the dumpster, on the container, shipping container that Rick was in, that it was A for Alexandria? Nope.
It's A for whatever the government considers an A.
And B for whatever the government considers as a B?
Yep, pretty much.
I mean, you can make assumptions, but we really don't know what that is.
The A?
Yeah, the A or the B.
Yeah, no, I don't know necessarily what they would look at. What qualifies somebody as an A and what qualifies somebody as a B? That I'm not.
Because she says, sure. I thought you were a B, right? To him at the end?
I think that's what he said. I thought you were a B, but it turns out you're an A? Is that what she said?
I thought you were my boyfriend, but it turns out you're an asshole.
I don't know. I think I interpret it to be like, in my mind, I don't know if A is alpha, B is beta, and she thought that he was more of a beta male, but like him standing up to her and being like, no, I can't go off with you. I need to support Rick, makes him like an alpha male, so he's an A. I don't know. I don't know what A versus B signifies.
Versus C. Pythagorean theorem divided by 2.
He's
not a square, he's a triangle. I don't know. I mean, I hope we get a chance to finally find out what's the, but we won't. That's what the show does. Or maybe we will. Maybe it's time. And even if it doesn't, like, at least maybe
time that we find out what?
Yeah, that we find out what this shit's all about. But at the same time, I'd be satisfied knowing that she could overcome whatever it is. Because I know you don't like relationships, but I kind of like this one.
What, her and Gabriel?
Yeah, I kind of want that to work. I kind of want Gabe to, to be happy. This is weird.
I want Daryl to be happy.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Everybody, like, the freaking priest is getting some. Like, that's just not right. Like, Daryl's like, just...
I'm
like, come on.
I keep telling you.